A little rough start for me today. We're thankful and grateful to have everybody on with us. Okay, we'll get started. Hopefully, we'll be able to get Facebook to act right in a second. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer. And it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, protect today's message. Amen. Um, Shalom, family. Peace. Uh, hopefully, everybody's doing well. Barakallah Shem Yahweh, Shalom Allah Shem Yahweh, Anai Kofi, Kohelet at Servants of Christ, Mashalom Chi. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Continuing the series that we did, or that we've been in, but today we're going to start off with some Q&A. So I will do my best. I didn't really have permission. I guess one person said I could have gone ahead and called them, but today I don't have it set up to take calls. So I will do my best to answer these as for what I saw and what I researched. If you guys are some of the ones who asked the questions, there's only 4 questions that we're going to start off with, and then we'll get into our actual subject matter for our leaven box and removing the leaven from our home. Hopefully you guys have joined us in that. If you have questions, comments, or concerns on the leaven box or whatever, you can actually look them up on the website. You can look it up in different places that we have posted. I'm going to try and do a video specifically just talking about what we're doing with the leaven box. It is not something you have to do via the law. It's something that we're doing as a tradition. And so obviously, if it's something that's traditional, it can be something that's based on the word and not, and at the same time, not necessarily be the word, right? Or it can be based on the law, but not necessarily have to be lawful. For example, those of you who celebrate, who celebrate, the Israel being released, and Esther and what she did and all of those great things. You can, in fact, celebrate that, right? But it's not lawful. There's no law that says you're supposed to do it, right? So there's different things we have, like when we do the women in red, when we do men's meetings, women's meetings, stuff for the children. Obviously, there's things that are customary, traditional, etc. So this is just something that we at SOC do when it comes to the leaven box. What we've been doing with our index cards, right? Putting those things together for us to be able to do something as a community, as society, etc. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you don't feel like if it's something that you want to participate in for whatever reason. I don't know what's going on with this device for Facebook. We're trying. Well, anyways, hopefully we'll get this up. Hopefully we'll be able to get something up for you guys. But we appreciate you being on. Thank you for being on with us. I guess we just have to have a regular Facebook thing pop up. There we go. Okay, I don't know why it's doing that, but praise Yah. It's giving us. There we go. Sorry about this, you guys. Yes, alrighty. Let's see. But we're going to start with these questions that we had from yesterday. I'm going to pull them up on our at least when I get a chance. We're going to pull this up on our on Gmail, on our email. Okay. I think we finally got that together as best as we're going to have it. All right. Hopefully that works. Praise Yah. Alrighty. So thank you guys for your patience. So we're going to start off with some questions from yesterday. Once again, we give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who doesn't like to able to be honored. As always, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And thank you guys for being on with us, being attentive, taking some time out to worship with us, learn the word with us, to go through this series as we continue to remove the leaven from our home. As when we talk about removing the leaven from our home, we are talking about removing sin from our home, from our families, and we do so in a natural sense, by making sure that we are removing leaven, and that we do so in a spiritual sense by making sure that anything that's causing us or our families to sin or fall short, that we remove it from our homes, physically, figuratively, psychologically, etc. All right. So hopefully you guys have been doing well with that so far. And we appreciate you. We thank you. We're going to go ahead and try to answer some questions that we had from yesterday that we did not have a chance to do because we did half and half. We did talking about the 11, what we were to put in the 11 box yesterday, as well as we talked about, and then we went into Q&A, so we ran out of time. So we'll make sure that we have, that we take care of these questions, and then we can go ahead and get into the word for today. Praise Yehovah. So as we get ready to do that, we'll start off with our Bible pledge, and then we'll go ahead and move. We'll go ahead and move forward into the rest of today's lesson, today's topic. So if you are able to stand on your feet, reverence the word of Yah, do our Bible pledge together, feel free to do so. And we invite you to do so, and just get ready to repeat after me. In the meantime, let's say hello to everybody. How you doing, Minister Anais, Minister Stephen, Sister Joy, Cultural Prospects, Sister Knight, Minister Tracy, Minister Tamara, Frank, Big Brother Thomas, Giza, DB, Sister Sherry, Shalom, Sister Renee, Jonathan, Sonic Love, Brea. Oh, by the way, those of you who are interested, as a reminder, once again, so you have to have the Clapper app to do so. We're asking that you have the Clapper app to do so. We're going to continue our watch party. We'll finish up the first Lord of the Rings movies tomorrow. That'll be at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time. Besides, obviously, our live session tomorrow, Shabbat School for the Children podcast. And brothers, we did put together a committee, or at least got most of the committee or most of the brothers to say that they were on board for it. So, brothers, we do have our men's meeting, and hopefully we'll have more thought process and more ideas for you all, as far as if we're going to meet up in person, where we're going to meet up, et cetera, for our men's. For Brothers in Black, which I believe is November the 16th, at least it's somewhere like the third Saturday of November, somewhere around there. And then those in December, who are doing Women in Red, December 6th to the 9th. If you'd like to join us for that, make sure you have information for that. You can always ask or ask around, ask some of the sisters, ask Sister Renee, get in touch with Elder Alma, and possibly even myself. Alrighty. So thank you, everybody, for being on. Appreciate you. How you doing, Sister Sheila? If I miss your name, charge to my head, not to my heart. Damon, Sister Bree, Children of the Most High, Bold Servant, Thoughts with SJ, Yas, my guide, everybody. I gave Emmanuel the salute earlier. How you doing, sir? Makia, everybody. Ashy Knuckle, okay, all right. How you doing? Yas Child, Donald Robinson, Friendly Holloman, if you're still on with us, everybody. Tara, if I miss your name on any of the platforms, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, podcast, or if you're coming over from Clapper, we appreciate you so very much. How you doing, Sister Shima, Pearl, everybody? Alrighty. So we'll go ahead and start with our Bible pledge real quick, and we'll jump into these questions. So Bible pledge goes like this. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard, for this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Acham Yehovah, Amen. In Yehovah's name, and his authority, and his Shem, and his Nomos, Amen. Alrighty. So before we get into today's, specifically what we're putting in the 11 box, we want to start off with just finishing up where we left off yesterday. So I'm going to just go in order of the questions that I saw that we didn't get to yesterday, and then we'll jump right in. So the question, first question was, we were taught about incubus and succubus, inc being a masculine demon, right, and suck feminine. These demons often attack children in homes and are at homes that are uncovered, fighting in the home, broken homes, etc. It appears during sleep. The demonic spirit covers the whole body. Wave hooks into the mind to release seed, which causes sleep paralysis. You can see and hear through them, but you cannot speak or cry out. and you cannot move. They release a demonic seed of fear into the mind of the ones they attack. Depending on which spirit attacks, which energy, masculine, male, or feminine, female, they attack, that attack could determine the outcome of its manifestation, and is why some people feel they are this way from a child because it was of their earliest memories. For example, if a boy is attacked by the feminine demon, he manifests a overly sexual spirit. Same with the masculine demon with girls. However, when the masculine spirit attacks a boy child, it manifests as homosexuality. Same with the female demon attacking a girl child. What are your thoughts on sleep paralysis and demon seeing? Does this sound like something that happens? So we're coming from a specific context. So I could be, you could look at that question, and thank you for your question. So that one, as far as, are we looking at the Greek? Because really, when we talk about incubus and succubus, a lot of people go straight to thinking about Japanese stuff, because a lot of people, unfortunately, Japanese or anime even, or hentai anime is something that a lot of people learn this through or seen, which it's used to go ahead and get that kind of deal with that spirit and continue. And a lot of us, or at least people have become aware of it, but there's really more of a Greco-Roman thing, a Greek thing specifically. Right, the incubus or succubus is more of a Greek mentality, a Greek thought process. So when you're dealing with this kind of thought process, right? When you're dealing with this type of thought process, and how you doing, Bradley, and everybody's coming on. Can you guys hear us on Facebook? I'm getting some weird stuff through Facebook. Uh, but anyways, it's been doing some weird stuff. Yesterday it cut off on us completely, so I'm not sure. Now it's saying it's not broadcasting while it's saying we're going live. So if you hear us or see us on Facebook, let us know. I'm not sure. We might have to just stop using this device altogether. It seems to be on its last legs. But anyways, how you doing, Jonah Key, and everybody who's coming on? So when we hear about this stuff, there's different ways we can look at it. Is it true that there can be demons that overtake children, or that demons that are trying to get into children? Matter of fact, if I keep it real with you, Solomon has the gift of being able to see spirits. And one of the things that he has seen is seen some spirits that are positive and seen some spirits that are negative. How you doing, Dennis? So that's something that we actually pray for and cover him in and stuff like that. How you doing, Sister Akita? So those things can, in fact, be reality, obviously, right? Spirits trying to get to you. A matter of fact, as a child, there was a period of time where I grew up and I would hear somebody calling my name down the hallway, and I kept waking up. And I thought, because I did grow up, even though I didn't grow up a Christian, I did grow up with the Bible being something that was central to my childhood spiritual diet, if you will. And so I recognize, if you hear your name being called, you can say, "Here am I." Problem is that you said Facebook is breaking up. Okay, so yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure what's going on with Facebook, but hopefully we'll be able to figure that out. Thank you for letting me know. So hopefully this will upload. I'm not sure what's going on, but so yeah, so I went through that even as a child, dealing with some stuff and hearing my name, and then didn't know it was the most, and it wasn't even the Most High. Turns out that because I was feeling some kind of weird way, but I would come out, and one day, I told my mom about it. She had seen me walking through the halls and stuff, and she actually realized that it had started when somebody gave her, or she bought, I'm not sure, but this had like this little wooden figure that she really liked, and she kept asking me about it. That she realized when she bought the wooden figures, when I started hearing my name being called in the hallway. So my mom takes the wooden figure, she broke it into pieces, she threw it out in the trash, and then I never heard the voice again. So there obviously is a lot of truth to those things. As far as I'd have to look more. I tried to study and research. I couldn't find exactly what you were talking about. So you might need to send me further information. So I can't, I guess, answer everything specifically that you're saying, but as far as, are there spirits and stuff that are trying to get to our children and trying to get to people in general? Yes. Are there spirits that we could say are perverted, and therefore are perverting people, not just as far as homosexuality, which, is not the only focus, but is there a spirit of things that are causing people to be sexually perverted, or to lust after certain things, to live into lasciviousness, to chase certain things like that? Of course. That's why we make it a point to say that there's a spirit. You have to think of the spirit and then it manifests. And the only way that it manifests, it has to manifest through a soul or through a soul tie, through a psyche, through a psyche. In the Greek, Psyche is the soul. So it has to manifest through the soul or the psyche. It has to manifest through the nachabash, right? It has to manifest through what connects the spirit to the body. Remember, even in any kind of demonic possession, the demon has to be given permission. You said the minute you realize that you have the power, you're no longer afraid. I hear that, yeah, right? How you doing, Brother Ali, and everybody coming on? If I miss your name, please forgive me. So we have to recognize and realize that within itself, that there is a place, that there is a mindset, that there is a thought process that we have to be aware of, that can allow things to come in, or depending on what you're wearing, depending on what you're saying, depending on how you're living, depending on what you depending on who's around in your circle, like we were talking about yesterday when we wrote out that circle that everybody might be able to see. How you doing, Marky? So there's a lot of different things that we can see that can connect us and that can actually give permission, right? That's why, by the way, even physically, how you set things up is important. A lot of people might not. So this is a little off of the question that you were specifically asking, correct? However, I said correct as if I told you what I said. Excuse me. This is a little further off of what you are asking, but let's even go a little deeper. If I am, Holy Spirit, help me. If I am in a position, right? Catch this. If I'm in, if you go to, let's say you go to church or whatever, right? And somebody says, come to this altar. Right, we'll try to make this plain. Some of you already heard me talk about this, right? The altar is supposed to be unaltered. If you look up what an altar is supposed to be something that is not carved out or is not changed by human hands. So if you're taking rocks from one place that are already made by the Most High the way they are, you're laying them there. How you doing, Sister Tianya? Right? If you're taking wood, right? You're not carving into the wood and stuff like that. You're taking wood that already exists, you're putting it on the altar, right? You're not changing it up, you're not carving things. But if you go to a church building and they say come to the altar, I know you can say in a sense they mean figuratively, but there's a spirit attached to everything, right? So if you go to a church and you go to an altar that's been altered, in other words, it's been carved out of human hands. If you go to a church and you go and they say come to the altar and you're coming to a stage that's been carved out of human hands, that means that this is something that has been altered. Therefore, it's technically not what we would call biblically an altar. It's something that has been altered. If it has been altered, then it is not an altar. I'm putting a bunch of altered, unaltered together. So hopefully y'all caught me, right? How you doing, Sister Sage? These are things that we have to recognize and realize, right? That there's a lot of things. So if that's altered and the word says don't alter the altar, then there's a possibility that that's out of disobedience. There's a spirit that could be connected there. It seems like something that somebody might say you're reaching, you're going too far, but that's what the word tells us, right? Anything that you consider being altered, right? Now, if you're talking about a spiritual altar only, to make it a spiritual altar only. But if we're talking about like people legit using things, or some people even building, some people even in the churches or in their organizations, whatever, they even build altars. If you're going to build the altar, you have to build it correctly. Right. Matter of fact, a lot. So you have to think about those things. Now, I'm saying that in a big sense, but even what about in your home, in your personal home, in your personal life? Have you when you make a room, when you say, some people have a room that's just for prayer, or some people have a corner of a room, right, that's just for prayer. Some people have a specific place that they go to on their land or something like that, where they say, I'm just going to stay in this particular place, right? Whatever these things are, you have to make sure that they're in tune. Exactly what the Most High wants, right? You have to realize, even let's say you're a Buddhist and you're going to have something that you pray to, right? They're going to give you something. They're going to say, put it on the wall. And as they say, put it on the wall, they even call it the mirror or the window to the soul. So when you're chanting, right? Some of you who do your Nam Myeho Renge Kyo or different things like that, when there's different things you can chant. That's just one of many, right? But if you do that, you have to realize that they open it up and they literally tell you it's a mirror to the soul. Now, what they're saying is you can see the mirror to your soul, and you can see the great things that's going on and the bad things and all this. But what they also aren't realizing is that they don't even know what all these inscriptions or characters or names that are up there. So when you're sitting up there chanting, you don't realize that there's actually demonic, evil things up there. There's positive things. There's things that are actually attached to Israel. There's things, right? And that's even and I'm talking about the one that I know of in the Japanese culture. But there's many different things that'll be up there, and you're not even aware. So you're chanting to these things, not realizing that you're invoking stuff, or even some of the stuff that you'll have like a short thing that you chant over and over and over again. Then you have like this long thing that you have to chant all together, and then you have a short thing you chant again. And a lot of people aren't aware. They're just sitting up there, they get their beads and stuff, they're going. Or like, when you're doing the same stuff in Roman Catholicism, you get your beads and you go in front of an idol, you go in front of a statue, right? And you get on your knees and you go back and forth, or some people literally beating themselves, or some people just rubbing together, just simply rubbing, but you're saying, Hail Mary, full of grace, you're saying those things. And if you're not careful, you won't realize that stuff is dealing with your soul. You've now invited through your soul, right? How you doing, Sister Betty? How you doing? Did I say hello earlier, Ethelrin? I'm not even sure if I say Ethel. If it's Ethelrin. Please forgive me. I'm gonna get it one of these days. But people are not aware, right, that they're actually allowing that stuff to be attached. That's a soul attachment. It might be through a physical thing, but the spiritual, right? There's manifestation. These things are attached to each other. So, getting back to the specificity, as far as I had to do more research, like I said, as far as what you were particularly asking. But as far as yes, can children be put in a position? Are there spirits trying to find somewhere? All types of stuff. Sure. Right. You said you never gone to the altar. You thought they were evil. Yeah. So it depends. You can go to an altar, but a lot of people don't even know what an altar is. Right. Hopefully we'll be able to do it very close to April 9th, if not on April 9th. But when we actually go to the land, or if we're looking at even like when we do Feast of Tabernacles this year, we're going to do some stuff where we actually build an altar. Right. I might even try to do some videos and stuff, or maybe we'll do a live session where we just literally say, like, one day, hey, on this day, try to see if you can go outside, try to see if you can go to a national park, try to see if you can go on your land, whatever. And let's actually build an altar so you actually can go through the exercise of it. You'd be surprised, like when you do stuff in order, you'll see and even feel certain things. Like we even, when you do anything that's a sacrifice, it's supposed to be totally consumed. So any leftovers, if we end up with leftovers for Passover, they all have to be consumed. So if we have to, like one time we were in a hotel when we did it, so we had to throw things away. We couldn't just burn it. But oftentimes we'll find a place to put everything and burn everything, right? Make sure it's totally consumed. And stuff that was wet, stuff that shouldn't have burned, stuff that shouldn't have been there, like Yah himself, it was like you could see he took over, and all of a sudden something that shouldn't have burned, it burned, and burned extremely well. Right? So these are things that if you see him in action and you go through the process, and then you start thinking about the spiritual things and the manifestation of things, you'll see some stuff that really is going to bless you, right? But outside of that, I had to do more research. I'll just say I agree with you. And as far as like the not just even sexuality, but many different things that happen or whatever, with the incubus, succubus type spirit, or just spirits in general, we should always be aware of that. So thank you for that question. Other than that, I'm probably going to have you send me some more items to be able to research with that. All right, next question. That's the first question. We got 3 more, and then we can get into today. Next question we had was, where in the Bible is Mary's son brother of Yehoshua called Yehoshua's half brother? Or where does it say in the Bible basically that Yehoshua has a half brother? So this is actually part of the reason why I was running a little late today, to be honest. This one spun me a little bit because I was like, I want to make sure that I'm accurate. So I went through several different verses in the Bible. I'll just say them out loud if you want to go through the recording, or I think the person who asked that question is actually on YouTube, so you can go and you can just rewind back and pause it, and or rewind as many times as you need to hear these scriptures. I'll say these scriptures out loud real quick. I wanted to make sure that I had them correct before the live session today. So I'll say them out loud. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, once again, you can always, try to rewind back at some point and listen to these again. So there are several scriptures that have, there's even more than this, to be honest, because then you got to go into other things as far as Matthew chapter 1 and the last verse of it to talk about part of the answer I'm going to give you. But here's the scriptures that I found just real quick, just doing a quick search that deal specifically with Yehoshaphat's family. And one of them is not even 100% accurate, actually. When you read it, it's not even talking about his family. But nevertheless, these are the ones that if you do a quick Google search, pop up. Matthew chapter 12, verses 46 through 50. By the way, just to let you know, there's something else apparently we should use besides Google, or we should try to use other search engines, because, you know, Google is used to give more information to the beast, and a lot of your information is being sold. So there is a lot of, not a lot of evidence. That's the truth. There is something I'm playing around with as far as the search engine. I'm going to see how it works, how well it works, and if it works well enough, I'll try to let you guys know about it. But, just to give you a heads up, because I was searching on this today and I was like, I haven't even tried the other search engine out. So you can download it, but I'm looking to see how it works. So I'll let you guys know that in the future. But Matthew chapter 12, verse 46 through 50 is one of the sets of scriptures you'll find. So Matthew 12, 46 through 50. Matthew chapter 13, verses 55 and 56. Mark chapter 3 and verse 31. Mark chapter 6 and verse 3. Luke chapter 8 and verse 19. John chapter 2 and verse 12. John chapter 7 and verse 3. Acts chapter 1 and verse 14. And 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 5. And then they also have Galatians chapter 1, verse 19. That's where it specifically states, it says that James is the brother of Christ. Okay, so I'll say those again just real quick. We have Matthew chapter 12, verses 46 through 50. Matthew chapter 13, verses 55 and 56. Mark chapter 3, verse 31. Mark chapter 3, verse 31. Mark chapter 6, verse 3. Luke chapter 8, verse 19. John chapter 2, verse 12. John chapter 7, verse 3. Acts chapter 1, verse 14. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 5. Galatians chapter 1, verse 19. Right? Now, all that being said, none of these actually say that, as far as specifically, nowhere in scripture, I believe, are you going to see anything that talks about Christ having a half brother or half sister. These will mention that he had brothers and sisters, will mention that his mother was around, his brethren around. By the way, sometimes brethren doesn't even mean family, correct? However, his brethren around, which they'll talk about his brothers and sisters, right? And even you'll see something mentioned. Now, I mentioned Matthew chapter 1 and read the last verse of it because this part is important to what I'm going to say. So if I start at Matthew chapter 1 in the last verse, Matthew chapter 1, obviously it talks about the lineage or the genealogy, if you will, of Christ, how he's, who he comes from, family names, etc. Right. And then once we get to Christ, it talks about how an angel shows up and asks permission, says, Mary, will you in fact take on this task of carrying the Messiah? Mary, Mariam, or Mary, she says, yes, let it be done unto me. You can also look at some of this stuff as far as Matthew chapter 1 and Luke chapter 3, or Luke chapter 1 through 3, right? To even get some stuff as far as John the Baptist and other things that are going on in priesthood and when Christ would have been born, get more, mindset of that. But when you finish all those things, and then she even does the song, right? There's actually a song of Mary, right? Where Mary comes up with a whole song. She's so excited about what the Most High is going to do in her life. She begins to give praise to him and stuff like that, as she's going to accept this great opportunity and even challenge of making sure that she not only has the Messiah, but protects the Messiah and raises the Messiah. And then, of course, she's already betrothed to Joseph, et cetera, all that stuff takes place. But then it says at the end of Matthew chapter 1 that Joseph finally realizes, through a dream that yes, Mary has in fact had an encounter with the Holy Spirit. She is impregnated and still has kept her virginity. She is still a wife, but Yahweh, her being Yahweh's wife, comes first, even to the place of making sure that what the Holy Spirit has bestowed upon her is going to be able to be birthed out. So it says at the end of Matthew chapter 1 that Joseph, that Yosef, but Joseph, the stepfather, if you will, of Christ, right? Because it's not his actual son, but Joseph, the son, or Joseph, the father, right? The stepfather or father of Christ, does not know. He said it does not KN. It says he never knew her, KNEW, but he does not know her, KNOW. That means he's not intimate with her. He does not have sex with her, does not lay down with her until after Christ is born. Right. So he would have been born. She would have had time to recover, time to get herself together. And then she would have actually had intercourse for the first time, which, by the way, makes sense because if you're supposed to be a pure, right, sacrifice, then the impurity of man can't even be in the place in the garden of the womb of which he's going to be. So no seed had been inside her. Right. So it's important to catch that part of it, because if we catch that part of it, then after Christ is born, according to the Bible, right? Because the question that you were asked, because there's a few different reasons why people will bring this up. So I'm going to make some assumptions. Forgive me for making some assumptions about the question. I don't have it set up where I could call you today. And who knows if you're able to take calls anyways. So I'm making some assumptions, but I think it'll answer the question not only more clearly, but also will answer some other things that people try to use against the word, or try to change the word, modify it from what it actually says. Right. And how you doing, Noel? Thanks for being on. How you doing, Craig? So here's some things that, and how you doing, Shaba? We coming with the receipts, praise y'all. How you doing, Granny and X and Leslie? Peace to you. Everybody's coming on. Thank you. Hopefully you're having a great day. So we'll get into our Leaven box in just a little bit. We're just trying to finish up from yesterday. So this is not a typical Q&A thing. This is just what we had left over from yesterday. Praise y'all for leftovers, right? You can get a great meal and you can still feed off it the next day. All righty. So here's the deal. If the Bible tells us that Joseph and Mary were betrothed, that means in their culture, they already had paperwork, right? Joseph is going to prepare a place for his wife. She's supposed to have oil in her lamp, preparing herself for her husband. He finds out that she's pregnant. Oh, wow, she's pregnant. She must be doing some things, obviously, in his mind, because he doesn't think to himself and doesn't believe, oh, yeah, she's just impregnated by the Holy Spirit. That don't make no sense, right? Let's just keep it a buck, right? Amen. Them leftovers can be great, right? So, how you doing, brother TJ? So, and all the stuff that's going on, and how you doing, Sean? So, and all the stuff going on, Joseph, he loves her still, though. So he says, I'm going to put her away, what? Privately, right? I have a privilege to do so, but also privately, right? I'm not going to put it out there on Front Street. I love her. They could stone her if they wanted. They could do a lot of stuff to her because of misogyny and things like that. They could bring her before some Greek and Roman councils and all this stuff. And Hellenistic Jews could have their way with her in certain ways or whatever. So, like, I'd rather not her go through those things. So I'm just going to get a divorce, because they already had the betrothal. In my culture, that's when the paperwork is signed. Then the second bit of paperwork is not even really paperwork, right? Once the two lose their virginity, the same sheet that they use where you see the semen and the blood, both of them losing their virginity or their blood for the first time, in a sexual intercourse, that's what's used as the second bit of paperwork and kept by the father-in-law. So it hasn't gotten to that point. So he's like, I'm just going to go ahead and put her away. I'm going to get divorce proceedings, because although we're not physically married yet, we have spiritually, soul-wise, and even on paper made it a point to say we are one, right? I belong to her. Everything I'm doing is preparing a place for her. Everything that she's doing is preparing herself for me and this place and this vision that the Most High has given me, right? He goes through all that. He's getting ready to divorce her. He has a dream. He realizes that the Holy Spirit has come upon her. And so since he has this dream, he says, okay, you know what? I believe. And he takes care of her and does not know her, does not have sex with her. So therefore, technically, they don't physically finish being married until she has finished her business being married to the Most High and giving birth to his child. Okay. So all that being said, now when we get to the place of, so her and Joseph, after this point, they're having intercourse. So any child she's going to receive after that point, that child belongs physically to Joseph, right? Christ was not the physical child of Joseph. He was the physical child of no one except Mary, right? But he has no, his father is only Yahweh. He has no other father. Any child that they have after that point belongs to Joseph, scripturally, right? Because that's when he knew her. Joseph knows Mary after that. He knows Mary after that. From that point on, he knows her. They're connected. They have sex. They are one physically. So any child, right? Now, right? So Christ is the oldest. Any child that Mary has after that is second to Christ as far as in lineage, in order, right? Now, so people will say, well, yeah, I don't see anywhere in the scripture where he has a or they call them stepbrothers or stepsisters. First of all, in the English that people are talking about, even going back to the King James Version or even versions written in the 1500s, there's no such thing as a step anything. Right? That's a new thing. Right? So those words don't even equate. So you wouldn't even see it in English, let alone in Israelite culture. In Israelite culture, you might hear, well, you're the son of so-and-so and you're the son of so-and-so. But the reality is there's no step anything. Right? The 12 branches of Israel, for example. Let's go back to that. 12 branches of Israel is Joseph in the 11th son, right? The 12th child, but the 11th son, right? The 11th branch is Joseph, considered to be the stepbrother of Dinah. Is Benjamin considered to be the stepbrother of Reuben? Is Simeon considered to be the stepson or the stepbrother of Gad? Right? No, not at all. Right? And we have a situation. There's 4 different mothers. I specifically made sure that none of the mothers were the same. They all the same father, but they have different mothers. But none of them are considered to be step. Right? Yeah, it's holy, it's a whole family, right? That's why there's this word that's used quite often in the Bible called adoption. Seeing these lawful and legal terms, you have to be adopted, right? If Elder Alman and I ever decided for whatever reason that we would take care of somebody in the family, right? Somebody in the family has a child and something happened to their child and we need to take care of them and we raise them up. Sure, they might know that, especially at a certain age, they might know that they're not like brothers and stuff, but if we're going to raise them in the same house, right? We don't say you eat as a stepchild. These terms like treated like a redheaded stepchild, that's not something that's our culture. Right. And once again, even in the Middle English that's being used here, they're doing the same thing. They don't have that yet. Now you think of step brothers and sisters as a regular thing, or step fathers and mothers. Even if you don't do it in your house, you've heard the term so much that it makes sense to you. You know what that is. Had you said to Christ, that's your stepbrother, he would have been like, I don't know what that is. Right. Hey, how you doing, Minister Shante? Right. So that in of itself is an odd term. You wouldn't see stepbrother or stepsister, but can we see clearly that it says Christ was born first? The Holy Spirit is who impregnated Mary, or at least the Father's seed was put in Mary through the Holy Spirit, right? And that's how the Son comes out, right? Even the Trinity being used there, right? We're seeing these things take place. And then, so Christ has no earthly father, right? Christ has no earthly father. So there's a lot of different things that we're dealing with. We'll kind of sort of even revisit that a little bit in what we're going to be talking about for today for our 11 box. But we'll go a little deeper into that. But yeah, so when you read these scriptures, it is correct. Whoever's arguing that point, or if it's, I didn't quite get if it was like something you noticed or something that somebody probably brought up to you. But yeah, there's no such thing as a stepchild in the Bible, because if you're my child, you're my child. If I raise you as my child, you raise me. As a matter of fact, there's an argument for Julius Caesar's. Julius Caesar, the first Caesar is technically not Julius Caesar, but it's his son, right? Augustus Caesar. But if you do some research, you'll discover that Augustus Caesar was not actually Julius Caesar's biological child. More than likely, he could be, but we don't know for sure. Either way, though, even though he wasn't considered to be his biological child when Caesar passed away, Caesar's will said that he wanted, even though Caesar had biological children, but Caesar's will said, I want Octavius, who becomes Augustus, right? Augustus Caesar. He says, I want him to be the one to have my will, and therefore he gets all the money. He gets all the people who end up like fighting for Caesar, all that stuff. They come under him because the adoption is what's important. You can have, watch this, you can have 8 children and 5 out of 3 of them are not being righteous and stuff. And 3 of them are the only ones you can trust. And what if the youngest is the one that you trust above all of them to actually make sure you do what your will says? Well, what happens is if you want that person to therefore be in charge of your estate and everything and how it's going to be disseminated after your passing, you would adopt that child legally into a position to where even though you can say there's an oldest child and the oldest child might be upset, but if you don't trust the oldest child, you would say, what? No, I know I got 80 of y'all and I know you're the oldest and I know you were ready. And I know maybe the third child was banking on they were going to get this and maybe the 5th child thought, but the youngest showed that I could trust them to do this and that they wouldn't hold on to stuff and they would do exactly what I wanted. And even if everybody got angry, I know that they'll do what they're supposed to do. So I'll go ahead and I adopt the 8th child into a position of leadership in that particular place. These are lawful terms. How you doing, Brother Warren? These are lawful terms and legal terms. And how you doing, Sister Nadine, if I didn't say so already? Right? And how you doing, Melanin? So these are the things that we have to recognize, right? So culturally, and how you doing, Brother Charlie, if I didn't say so earlier? So these are things that we have to recognize. We don't know the thing as far as that. The curse will be broken. Praise Yah. Right? Yeah. So there is no stepchild. If you are my child, you are my child. That's the way it works. The step thing is new, but in our culture we don't do this. So yeah, so you won't see it say specifically, Jonas and James, and this one and that one are the half brother of Christ. But if Christ wasn't born of Joseph and the other siblings are born of Joseph, then that would mean that they would be what we would call today half brothers. But so that person can be right in a sense, and they can be wrong in a sense, right? If you want to say yes, it doesn't say specifically there's a half or step brother or half sister or any of that stuff or whatever, or Joseph is stepfather, sure, because Joseph didn't take care of Christ like he was a stepchild. He took care of Christ like Christ was his own child. Yeah, it doesn't even sound right. So we don't culturally, that doesn't make sense to us. Matter of fact, in a lot of our homes, a lot of black, if we want to call it black homes, right? A lot of black homes, a lot of Israelite homes, etc. You don't really hear people talk about that's my step brother and my stepsister. Even if that's my play cousin, we'll even joke and say, I love you like a play cousin. But if I feel like you're my cousin, I just say your cousin. If I feel like you're my brother, I just be like, bruh. We don't do that. You see, it's still in us. Like we don't recognize that. That's not something. And those who recognize that, as a matter of fact, you don't even be talking about that unless like you don't want to follow what your parent says. Like, for example, let's say you got a daddy, but he ain't your daddy and you love him, he be raising you and stuff, but then all of a sudden you don't want to do what he says, right? So your friends are like, oh man, you don't come with us? Your dad said you can't come. And then that's the only time when we'd be like, man, he ain't my real daddy. That's the only time we actually do that, right? Other than that, like, yeah, even if I don't call him dad, doesn't that whatever, that's my dad. He take care of me, right? Especially when it gets to the point I got his last name, all this other stuff. So that's not something that really resonates with us usually. Just being honest. You said every children in the neighborhood belong to everyone. Yeah, and it's because that's what it's supposed to be, right? People use these terms. It takes a village to raise a child. How you doing, Shabazz? So yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, when you're doing the stepchild stuff and all that, yeah, you're adding divide, all that. Oh, and some preach about the half mess and stuff. Yeah, so it's really no such thing. So the only time, so the reason why I was saying I was going to make the assumption, I'm gonna go ahead and Sister Akita, since you're kind of showing that you were the person that asked the question. So the only reason why I would what is it that I'm looking for? I'm sorry, y'all. Oh. So the only reason why I empathize or I can comprehend, I don't understand it, but I can comprehend why this is a big deal for people, especially now in the Israelite faith, but it happens in Christianity too, is that there's a thing where people are trying to say that Christ was not born of a virgin, and that since Mary wasn't actually of Judah physically, therefore she can't be, it doesn't make sense that Christ came through Mary. So they're trying to say that Joseph had sex with Mary, and Joseph, therefore, is the one that gave birth to Christ. Problem with that is, though, is that Christ is supposed to be perfect sacrifice, and his blood is supposed to be something that should be shed to take care of the blood of everybody. So we have a problem there. Once again, though, people don't recognize, once again, on paper, Joseph and Mary already married, right? That means she's already grafted into the family. Right. And that means that everything. So that means that when Christ comes through, Joseph and takes care of him, not as a step, but he has to adopt him in. That means that whatever Joseph's bloodline is, it also is Christ's bloodline. But then also Christ has the bloodline of the Most High. So that's where it kind of has become. So that's why I even did a little deep diving. And like I said, I might go a little deeper than even what your concern was, because there's a lot of people who are trying to use that now and say, oh, yeah, well, Christ he didn't even come from the Most High, because usually it's people who are trying to deny any kind of what people call the Trinity, right? They don't like what Elohim actually means. So they're trying their best to cut it off. So that's why I kind of went a little deeper as well. So I appreciate the question more than you'll ever know, because it actually is a lot more to it than that. Yeah, and if we're not careful, even the ideology of step families, it can, of course, destroy families and make people feel like they're lesser than this, that, etc. Okay, all right. Next question. So somebody asked a question. We didn't get to this one yesterday. I wanted to ask a question about if Jesus is okay to use as a term of worship. So put it like this: I don't use Jesus. We don't believe that it's all right to use it, because not only it's not his name, but it's a lie in certain senses like this. So I'll start up by saying it's a lie, because here's the lie. People tell you that the term Jesus is a transliteration. Right? I'm going to say the term. I'll even give you the title Jesus. Right? They'll try to tell you it comes from transliteration. What the lie is, if you know Greek, then you'll know that all you're doing is just transliterating what people say Yeshua, which is not even necessarily his name either, because ooh, and all that stuff is not even Hebrew, right? But they'll say in the Hebrew, and we'll just follow this for a second. In the Hebrew, if Yeshua is his name, then if you transliterate it, then Jesus is what you get. Problem is, though, is that, well, there's no letter J. So this is transliteration. Transliteration is always dangerous. So they do this. They say, okay, the letter J is just IE, which you can say that, right, to a certain degree. Like if you see the word, like if you were to see, if somebody says Jonah, that actually would be Yonah. And in Greek, they would say IE to make the j sound, or make a y sound. They don't have a j sound. Remember, the j sound the letter J, even in modern history, doesn't really exist until like the 1700s. So people who are using the letter J, a lot of them are people who are actually literally like learning. I'm not going to say nobody uses it, but especially in European language, nobody's really using that thing, the letter J. And Israel's not using the letter J. There is no letter J. There's no J sound, none of that. There's no character for J, etc. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, J is IE. Okay. All right. And then they'll say, instead of it being shu, right, making a sh sound, they'll say, well, the Greeks don't have a sh sound, so they just go sa. I mean, I guess. All right. And then they say, well, then you have the U for in Jesus comes from the U, and Yeshua. Once again, that's not true. It actually would come from the Vav. But all right. But then they do this weird thing at the end where they say, and then we'll put an A at the end, or we'll put an S at the end. But in Hebrew, there's an A. And in Greek, there's an S. Now, this is something where even though we're kind of like, all right, I guess I'll roll with you, then I got to stop, because what's happening as far as etymology and transliteration doesn't make sense, because you said that you're going to put an S where there's an SH, right? YESH, you said JES, right? YESH, you said JES. Okay. Then where we have a oo sound, which we don't, but where we have a the, or what people say oo, you said that's an oo there. Okay. But then we have a problem, because we have an A at the end, if you will, and you have an S at the end. So something's not right. That's like the first kind of chink in the armor. Because then I had to go, okay, well, you have an A, or we have an A, and that's what you're saying. That's not really our language anyways, but you're saying we have an A, and you're saying that you have an S. So we have an A, you're saying you have an S. But you said S was SH. You don't say that it's G's G. Right? You don't right. You don't say it's not Yeshua. It's not Yeshush, because that would be J-E-S-U-S according to you. It's not Yeshush, right? Because you said that S-H is S. J-E-S, J-E-S, right? Y-E-S-U-H. But then you have J-E-S-U-S, and you're trying to say J-E-S-U. I'm sorry, you're trying to say Y-E-S-H-U-A is the same as J-E-S-U. S, and it doesn't make sense. So if anything, if the letter A should be on there, it should be Jizua or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Phonetically, that might be something we have to write on the board at some point. But hopefully that makes enough sense. Hopefully you catch what I'm saying. It's not, something's not right. Long story short, you messed up even in what you say is transliteration. So if anything, right, and we know, so here's the next part. So we see that there's a chink in the armor. We see that something's not making sense. We see that you're lying, because you can't say that Yeshua transliterates to Jesus. This is why transliteration is dangerous, because a lot of people change stuff even in transliteration, and people don't recognize that a lot of transliteration, not translation. Translation is different than transliteration, right? Literature, how you read it. And if you can't, certain things don't transliterate, you can't read it the same in characters, the same way that certain things do not translate. Right? E is not the yet, the eh, at least the yeah, right? There is a such thing as te, there is a such thing as che. Even in modern Hebrew, you would say che, right? But there is a such thing as a che sound or a te sound, but there's no such thing as a yeah sound. Remember, there's no vowels in Hebrew. So the eh sound you're thinking of is just the letter E. That's not how that works. It's got to be connected to another kind of what you say consonant. So there's only te and che. Outside of that, there's no, everything else, there's only one other character that makes an I sound. Everything else makes an ah. Ah, ba, ga, da, cha, la, za, then che, te, back to ya, la, ma, na, right? I think I just skipped over ka, excuse me. Ya, ka, la, ma, na, right? All these different things that we're doing. Sa, all these different things, they're going to have an ah sound. So we don't have a yeah. There is no Yeshua. There can't be a Yeshua or even Yehushua. There's no yeah. That's why if you're going to say, you should be saying Yahshua, even though that's still not necessarily correct, but you should be saying Yah, because we don't have a yes sound. There's no such thing as a yes sound or in Paleo Hebrew. In modern Hebrew, they change it a little bit, but technically in modern Hebrew, there's no ah sound either. There's no Yeshua. It's supposed to be Yah if you're going to use that term. So now we see that there's a problem. Also, we know that Zeus means Zeus, because we're talking about Greek language. So S-U-S, then they'll try to be like, no, it's S-E-O-U. No, right? S-U-S is Zeus. Don't try it, because if you're trying to lie about that, it's a little sus, right? That S-U-S is Zeus. That's what that is in the Greek terminology, right? No problem. Thanks for being on, Stormy. How you doing? So, for example, S-U-S. So who is Dionysus? The son of Zeus. Who is Dionysus? The daughter of Zeus. Matter of fact, there's somebody, you call him Perseus, but really he could be called Perseus, right? That's one of Zeus's progeny as well, right? Who is Pegasus? That is the horse of Zeus. Who is Zeus? That is Zeus. So we know all these things, and we get to get through those things. And guess what? Then here's another one that we got to admit. What does Jesus mean? If all of them are Zeus, right? If Pegasus is the horse of Zeus, if Dionysus is the son of Zeus, if Dionysus is the daughter of Zeus, if Perseus, or what you call Perseus, right? He can go by either or, right? But you got to realize it could be Zeus. But if you're not saying Zeus, you're saying Zeus. Well, Zeus is S-U-S or Z-U-S, right? We don't know etymology. How you doing, Ralphio? So if that's what we're dealing with, how you doing, D, if I didn't say so already? So if that's what we're actually dealing with, what we're actually working with, what we're actually learning from, right, then we have to stay committed to it. You can't tell me that Zeus means Zeus everywhere else, but then when we get to Jesus, it doesn't mean Zeus anymore. So Zeus, so once again, Dionysus, son of Zeus, Dionysus, daughter of Zeus, Pegasus, horse of Zeus, Perseus, son of Zeus. Okay, well then Zeus is Zeus. That means Jesus is something and Zeus. That's just proper etymology. And man should not live by bread alone, but by every word, especially the ones uttered out of the mouth of Yah. But I live by those words, but I still pay attention to every word, at least long enough to be able to see if I shouldn't pay attention to it anymore. So what is Jesus? Jesus is half man, half Zeus. Some of you even believe it means to praise Zeus. I won't argue with you today, right? But whether you're going off praise Zeus or half man, half Zeus, I don't worship Zeus, so I can't call him Jesus. Also, too, here's the problem: Yahashua, or even if you're trying to use Yeshua, Yahushua, Yahabashai, etc., that's not his name. He would not have answered to that. He has another name. It's called Emmanuel or Emmanuel, right? But you're not arguing that one. You're arguing over is his name Jesus or Jesus or Jesus or Yesu or Jesu. All of those things, no matter which dialect you're using, you're trying to say that's a transliteration of his name, but that's not his name. It means half man, half Zeus. He would have never answered to it. If you had came up to him and you had said, hey, Jesus, he would not have turned. If you had turned to him and said, hey, Zeus, what's up? He wouldn't have said anything. If you had said, Jesus, I worship you, he wouldn't have looked at you, because that's not his name. And as much as we don't like this, names mean something. Culturally, they mean something, right? A lot of us fight for names that are not even of our culture. We're going to talk about that some today when we get to our topic, which is not even our topic. We're doing a little hybrid today, but we're going to talk about that when we start getting back to our 11 box today, right? But names mean something. All right, exactly. That's not his authority. Matter of fact, even who calls your name means something. Because if I'm in a huge crowd, there's not too many Kofis in a lot of places I go. If I go to Jamaica, if I go to Ghana, if I go to Nigeria, there's a lot of Kofis, right? If I go to a lot of places in the Caribbean, even if I go to a lot of places in England, I'm gonna run into a lot of Kofis, right? So I might not even respond at all. But if I know your voice, because we have relationship, I'll turn, right? But a lot of us, we're more in tune with our straw men and stuff like that, where we're more in tune with how other people consider us to be their property. And for a lot of people, Christ is their property. So a lot of people don't like this part. So when you ask the question about, is Jesus suitable for worship? Not suitable for worship, but I will tell you, I'll be honest with you, where Jesus actually comes from in the original scripture. Yeah, half man, half Zeus, you can see where it comes from. It's actually in original scripture. Matter of fact, it's in original scripture twice. But we don't know. Once again, this is why I say, when people say, what version of the Bible should I read? I always tell you, don't worry about the version as much as the culture. Once you get the culture and language and mindset down, you can read almost any version of the Bible, and you'll even be able to tell if certain versions are not that great within yourself, because you know how to live it and you know what they would have lived within that culture. How you doing, Mad Trekker? And how you doing, Sister Marion, Auntie Marion, if I didn't say so already? And we're praying. Amen. I try to reach out. Actually, I'm gonna try to reach out to y'all in general, anyways, in a little bit. But praying for you guys, right? And let Minister Momo know that we praying for her too. Big sis, let her know. I've been checking in with her, of course. How you doing, Chosen? I'm sorry. What is this? Colossians 4:11. What is Colossians 4:11? Where are we going to? And welcome. Hello. I'm sorry. Colossians 4:11. I don't remember that off the top of my head. Sorry. Colossians chapter 4. Let's go there. Colossians 4 verse 11. Oh, and okay, so I read it in English, right? And Jesus, which is called justice, who are the circumcision, which is called justice, who are the circumcision. These are only my fellow workers unto the kingdom of God, which have been comfort unto me. Okay, cool. So before, have you ever read a 16? Let me help you with something. I don't even know if I have mine in this room. I carry it with me usually. Usually it's in my book bag, but I don't think I have my book bag packed the way I normally would. So it could. Oh, I think I have it. So I'm going to do something for you. Right. So this is and forgive me, my Bibles get used a lot, so they go through some things. But this is I'll even flip the screen for you. You ready? This is why culture is important. You ready? And why etymology is important. Why we don't just go off of stuff, and we have to actually know the origin, and it has to be our report. Right? That's why the Bible says, who shall believe our report? It doesn't belong to just everybody, right? We have a responsibility to teach the truth. Okay. On Facebook, and we're having some issues with the screen anyways, and the feed apparently on Facebook today really bad. But so I apologize for those who won't be, but you can see this. These are two Bibles, right? You see these two Bibles, right? This is the more modern one. This is an original 1611 King James version. Okay. In this one, right, I'm going to go to, I think I can just go to Matthew 1, right? I believe we'll figure it out. But so in this one, we'll just do some research real quick. Let's go to, I think we can just go to Matthew chapter 1 and just solve this real quick, because a lot of people don't study that well, right? So this one is, or don't know the culture. Forgive me. I don't want to come across as if I'm being looking down on you. Like, you might study quite often, but you might not have the cultural context, right? And so people are talking about justice and all this stuff. People are writing these things in, right? Justice is not even, the letter J, once again, didn't exist back then. So we're going to go to Matthew chapter 1, and we're going to literally read Matthew chapter 1 verse 1, and then we're going to read Matthew chapter 1 verse 11. But I'm not going to read it out. I'm going to just show it to you. I apologize. On Facebook, this will look backwards. I'll say out loud what's going on for those who are on the podcast, but I'm going to just show you modern. Okay, you ready? All right. I'll show it to give me a chance on each one of these screens. I'm showing you that the letter J is different. So here's Matthew chapter 1. Matthew chapter 1, and it's backwards on Facebook. I apologize. But if you look at Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, you're going to see that it says that this is the book of generation of Jesus Christ. So even if you're using that term, Jesus Christ, wow, TikTok trying to be slick, they're going to try to kick us off. All right. So even if you're using this and it says Jesus Christ, Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, it has the letter J there, correct? Okay. And Matthew chapter 1, verse 11, it's going to say Josias and Jeconius and all that, right? Matthew chapter 1 and verse 11, you'll see that letter J. Okay. Can you see that on YouTube? Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, you're going to see the letter J for Jesus. Matthew chapter 1, verse 11, you're going to see the letter J for Jonas and Jeconius. Okay. Can you see it on TikTok? Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. This is the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, right? And then Matthew chapter 1, verse 11, you're going to see verse 11, and Josias begot Jeconius and his brethren. Okay. All right. Y'all see that? So this is modern. All right. This is modern. Everybody with us? Everybody saw it? Everybody, we in agreement, right? The letter J, I'm not lying to you. This is a modern version of the Bible. Matter of fact, if you want, there's the same thing would be in another King James. Here's another King James, right? It's going to do the same thing, okay? It's going to do the same thing. All right, so we saw that. All right. Now, this is a 1611 King James version. There's different versions of this 1611 King James version. You got to look for the original. The original doesn't have any letter J in it. The original has V and U interchangeable, because Vav and U, just like we were talking about yesterday, the difference between Vav and people thinking that U is a new thing, but U is actually a Greek thing, right? So here we go with people dealing with more original language. So I'll start with Facebook first. You're not going to see the letter J in Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, or in Matthew chapter 1, verse 11. It's going to be an I or an IE, depending on what kind of word they're trying to give you, because that letter doesn't exist. There's no J sound, even in English at this point. Let me show it over here, right? Right? Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. I'm on YouTube now. I'll come on over to TikTok in a second. Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. Matthew chapter 1, verse 11. You're not going to see a letter J, right? Because there is no letter J. Not yet, even in Middle English, even in English, they don't have that. Even because in Latin and Greek, they don't have that. Even if they're using this nickname or this title. Here we go again, right? 1611, King James Version, right? And you can go and look older. There's 1,500 books in the 1500s written where the Bible was written. You can look at those too. You're going to see the same thing. Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, right? The book of the generations of, is that a J or an I? Even they have to admit, yes, it's correct. They didn't have that yet. You're used to Jesus because people have done that and written that in long enough. Look right next to it, Matthew chapter 1, verse 11. What are you going to see? And not Jonas, but not Josias, but and Josias begot Jeconius. I-E. I-O-I-E. They don't have that there, right? So in Middle English, this doesn't even exist. So in 1611, and they didn't even let people start using this and put it in a rotation really to the 1700s. But in 1611, we can see clearly there, right? And you can say even up to the 1700s when they're still using this, but in 1611, they don't even recognize the letter J, right? So when you see these, that's what I'm saying. You can even see that obviously something has been changed. Just in that, just in looking at what you are going to get off the shelf and buy today and buy into, and what they had printed. And by the way, this wasn't even something that the average person could get, because you had to be somebody who had the money for it and therefore had the prestige to be able to afford or even have the relationships to foster with somebody who would teach you these things. Because remember, school doesn't exist back then. Right, what your school system is based off of, depending on where you're from, either starts in the 1900s or started to get its base off of what Thomas Jefferson would imply needed to be done in the 1800s. I'm sorry, there was a letter J at the top of the page. Oh yeah, okay. Granted, okay, so you're saying because it has that J at the top there. Yeah, that's not okay, I'll give you that. But that's not the original. So I give you that. You found the one that you said that's chapter J, even though really that wouldn't have been a J either. But you know, that's different. That's actually, well, I won't argue. I won't argue with you. Right. Let's do it like this. Because that's not really a J. Right, that's cursive, if you will, but I'll give you that. If you think that that's a J up top, fine. All right, all right. I just wanted to make sure, right? But look it up. That's not a J. It looks like a J. Now, once again, if you do the research and discover how the letter J came into existence, it went from an I, the dot, and somebody started trying to curve it, right? But nevertheless, right? They took something that was already there. They made it. It's just like, for example, you guys know the number 5. A lot of you've never actually seen the number 5 correctly. If you know what the number 5 looks like in its origin, number 5 is an ankh on the top, right? So it's the number 5 had existed in many different places. They'll tell you that number 5 numbers didn't even exist the way you think of them until India put them together. But in Kemet, you had a number 5 with an ankh on top. You just don't know the ankh goes on top of it. So, anyways, but if that's what you can think of that, but it's really just saying, it's saying chapter. By the way, let me help you. It's a cursive I. You ready for this? I don't want to leave that there because that could be confusing. And by the way, I hope I'm not coming. I feel like I might have came at you like, but I teach on this stuff a lot, so I apologize. It kind of messes with me. So this is why. So if you see this here, chapter 1, and I'll show this what you're talking about. So the person talking about this at here, and no offense, no shade. I apologize if it's coming across that way. So you had the chapter, right? Chapter. If you're not careful, you'll think that's chapter J. Now remember, I'm telling you that's cursive. Now you know why that's cursive? Because if I look here, this is chapter I, or Roman numerals, chapter 1, correct? And what does this say? Chapter I, not chapter J, but chapter I. Right. So this is them saying this is the first chapter. So this would be an I. It's cursive, right? This is not an I, right? So I can see that, right? But once again, it's a different character, it's a different context. So this is not, so what you think of the letter J, matter of fact, if you even look at your alphabet, right, the letter I and the letter J are right next to each other. The letter J didn't exist. There was just I. And if you wrote it in cursive, right, so you can even see Roman numeral, right, when they're doing the Roman numeral, it looks like what you call a capital I. But when they say we're going to put it in cursive, or we're going to put it in something that we write more so, then they say what? This is a capital, or this is an I. Chapter I, chapter 1, chapter I, chapter 1. Okay. So yeah, so it's that's why I say, like, it's a lot in there, and we're so used to it, and it's kind of difficult. But that's why I say once you learn the culture, it's actually not that difficult to kind of go through and be like, oh, okay, I see that, I see that, I see that. Right. So Colossians chapter 4, verse 11 in the original book. Okay. It's not going to say Jesus, you know, but okay. I guess you're trying to see if it still says the other word. I'm trying to get to the point to which you're going to ask, because even in this, once again, so as I'm turning there, my point is that this does change. For example, is Simon's name Simon? Is that a Hebrew name, or is that a name he was given after? Is Peter, is that the name he's given after that? Is Peter's name Peter, or is that another name? Peter going to small stone. Christ renamed him, and so in the Greek, they're calling him the small stone, or something small and solid. So his name's not Petra or Petros even, or whatever. It's not Peter, but you call him Peter. Right. So they're using names that aren't even necessarily the names that would have been used, is ultimately my point. But give me a second. I'm sorry. Ugh. Why am I having an issue? I'm having a brain moment. I'm not even going to hold you. I'm having a brain moment. Where are we going? Colossians, right? Colossians 4:11. Forgive me. And see, I got pages coming out. This is prime study material right here. Okay, sorry about this. Can you guys hear me and see me, by the way, on YouTube? I can't tell. Having issues with signal and all these things. I'm like freezing up on my end. I can't tell if I'm going all the way through or not. Facebook looks like it's just glitching. Like I'm just going like this on this and this and glitching on the screen. I can't tell. Loud and clear. Okay, thank you. Why am I having such an issue? Colossians. I know it's right next to Thessalonians. Why am I tripping? Colossians. Okay, here we go. Colossians chapter 4. What was it? Verse 11, right? So even there, right? For Colossians chapter 4. Sorry. Colossians. Well, we got a little shadow going here. Colossians chapter 4, verse 11. Sorry. And I got it mirrored, so it's looking weird on my screen. But so it's IESUS and then IUS to it. IU, right? Which IUSTUS, right? So it's going to be the same. But that being said, even that justus or things of that nature, right? You're not talking about the same thing that is Hebrew, right? Who is he talking to? He's saying you guys know him here as really would be what you could say actually the way that the I is written there, well, it depends. So you're talking about like, because here's another thing we keep forgetting too. You're talking about culture. So when he's talking to the Colossians, he's talking to the Colossians. When he's talking to, like, for example, in First Corinthians, people will go, oh, well, you shouldn't have long hair. Long hair is a curse, this and that, or whatever. And when you look at what he's saying, he's actually saying like these things that you uphold here for your culture, it's this is that, this is bad, this is that. But he says, but that's not our custom. So he says, when you're talking about long hair is bad for men, we have men with long hair. That's not our custom. He says, those things being said, though, there is one thing I left for you customarily. So he's like, he's telling them, you guys are hearing about this person and you would know him as, I think in their language that they're speaking in there, I think they would know him as Iustus, right? Because IE makes the yah sound. So it even wouldn't be the same there. It wouldn't even be yah or justice, right? But somebody, once again, taking that and transliterating it would say, oh, yeah, you also know him as justus. That's not what they would have even said back then, right? So there's a lot of different things. I don't even know if that makes sense. I don't have a whiteboard in front of me today. I apologize. But what I'm trying to get back to is what I was trying to get to is, so the person who's saying about Jesus, the actual biblical reference for his name is actually there, because in the Bible, it talks about the fact that he was on the cross, right? And when he was on the cross, Pontius Pilate had his name written in 3 times in 3 different languages. You said, so the name was Ashkenaz instead of Jew, and it had nothing to do with the people of the Bible. Well, the name Yehoshabai, right, was what was written on the cross. Remember, in the Bible, it says he's on the cross, and it says there's 3 times that his name is written above the cross, right? Once in Hebrew, and in Hebrew it says Yehoshabai Yehashvi, Malachi at Yehovah, right? Or here's Yehashvi, or here's the Messiah, Yehashvi, King of the Jews, if you will. Remember? And then the second, it says it in Greek, which would have been Yesus, which is what you see in the King James Version, 1611 King James Version we were just showing you, where it would have been Iesus, right? Now, that's actually, you could say, original, if you get the context. Okay, it was actually there. The title was put up there. And then in the Latin, it would have been Iesu. It would have been written in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek 3 times, because people of that time, right, when they even put people up, and they would do that, they would put it up in Hebrew, in that area of the world. They would put it up in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek, because a lot of people that lived in Israel were not even Israelites anymore. Matter of fact, when Christ, before he goes to the Mount of Olives, right, to preach the Sermon on the Mount, it says that after he came out of the wilderness, he started preaching the word and healing people and stuff, and he started doing it in Galilee, and it said that he did it for people that were Israelites and even the Gentiles that lived there. And if you keep on reading through Matthew chapter 4, you'll discover that it says that people of Africa knew about him and were following him as well, a lot of African nations and other Middle Eastern nations, right? So there's a lot more going on there, right? There's a lot more going on there, right? So there's a lot more going on as far as these different things, and we have to recognize and realize those things. So there's a lot more to the culture. There's a lot more cultural reference points. So if you want to say the title of Jesus now, or the title of Yesu, they actually were on the cross when he was on the cross, but they were underneath the Hebrew. Now, why is that important? Why do you think that in the Latin and Greek it says Yesus? And it's not a transliteration. He's saying Yesus. We've already showed you that means half man, half Zeus. His name is Yehoshaphat. It's actually, the characters are actually Yod, He, Shin, Vav, Ayin. That's his name, right? Which is totally different even than what they're telling you transliterates, right? They made up Yeshua, right? And that even in of itself is a dialect of Greek, but they made up Yeshua, right? Is the Bible history or prophecy? It's both. The Bible is, put it like this, the Bible is law and case study based off of one family. There's a family that comes from Adam, then goes to Noah or Noah, and it goes all the way through talking about Abraham, and then talking about Isaac and Jacob, right? Or Jacob or Yehoshaddai, who becomes Israel. That's who the Bible's for, right? And anybody wants to be grafted into that, it's for you. Anybody else, you're not going to catch it, because it's like you guys trying to talk about my family. You don't live in my house. No shade. I'm just trying to set the right. As for me and my house. As for me and who? As for me and my house. This ain't for everybody. And even people that are Israel, not all Israel is Israel. You got to follow this thing. You got to live it. You got to reside in it. It has to be something that's your natural part of your life every day. Honoring it. So yeah, right? And people say, right, by the way, I'm not worried about his story. I'm worried about the story. Our story, Yahweh's story, and the story should be the true story. So if you want to look at Oluwadach Equiano, to be able to look at even at his story and our story, where you have a slave that was able to purchase his own freedom, read the Bible for the first time, and then thought about his childhood, right? Because he couldn't remember his childhood before then. As he read it, his childhood memories came back. He remembered that he was royalty. He remembered that he was over in Nigeria, Igbo, same places, Negro land, Guinea, stuff like that, where on the map, scattered Hebrews are even labeled there into the 17 and 1800s. There's a map that you can still look up today, and you can look up online by looking it up in the Library of Congress. You can zoom right in, and you can see near the letter G that it'll say that's where the scattered Hebrews are in the kingdom of Judah. Same places that you see castles like Elmina Castle, things of that nature. You see all those things in that area or whatever. That's the story. People will tell you, oh no, there's no evidence of anything in Kemet, but if you look in Kemet, there's a huge stone there right now to this day that's in pristine condition, and they keep it clean and everything to this day, especially people who came there and been excavating. I always mess up that word, excavating different things that are there, and they literally, it says on there, right, in a specific time, 1200s BC, right, that Israel had no king. You look in 1200s BC in the book of Judges, in those days Israel had no king. You look at the Sea of Reeds, because it was never the Red Sea. Once again, people don't know how to translate things, and so they say the Red Sea. It always was the Sea of Reeds. You go to the bottom of the Sea of Reeds, you see chariot wheels, 4 spokes, 6 spokes, 8 spokes, horse hooves, right? No longer skeletons and stuff like that of human beings. But at the time, there were people that said that they saw them. I mean, right? And it doesn't even make sense that they would go across the Red Sea, because the Red Sea is out of the way of what the Bible's saying that they're going to, especially if they're heading, if they're in the wilderness. The Red Sea is out of the way, but the Sea of Reeds is right there. Right. So there's a lot of stuff culturally that I'm saying, right? So it's hard to try and answer all those things in the quick thing. Like I said, today's not going to turn into Q&A. How you doing, Brother Allen? But and we do fight really hard to kind of uplift what we've been taught by an oppressor. And it's really odd to me sometimes too, because even in the oppressor doing all these different things, we never once say to ourselves, if we believe they changed up stuff as far as Kemet, if we believe they changed up stuff as far as the story of mankind, if we believe that they changed stuff up to say that we were not dominant because we actually had lesser skin, and that's why they had to beat you to the white meat showed and all these different things, how is it that you don't believe they changed the Bible? I'm already in what we're talking about today, because today we're going to be talking about the Willie Lynch syndrome. So we're talking about Willie Lynch syndrome anyways, right? But we're looking at it through somebody else's culture. We just are. How you doing, Brother Vincent? How you doing tonight? Right? This is just the reality. You know, like we're looking through somebody who doesn't want you to know who you are, and then trying to say, is it historical? If it's historical, sometimes it's hysterical. His story is hysterical. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Like his well, some of the stuff that you call historical is hysterical. You see what I'm saying? And you think it's hysterical to me that we recognize, we know that Ramses is a liar, but because he's a Kemetic pharaoh, you're just going to let it slide that every time that he lost, he always said that he won, or a lot of his losses, he just erased them and had them removed. A lot of stuff that you say that Ramses, I'm talking about Ramses II, Ramses the Great, right? He lived a long time, sure, but a lot of stuff that he said he built, we know he didn't even build. But you say it's historical. It's hysterical to me that you don't think that somebody, because they're Kemetic, they couldn't lie. You think that every single dynasty of Kemet, all of them were polytheistic, and none of them were, none of them believed in just one. None of them were monotheistic. That's not true at all. We can see it written on the walls. That's not true at all. You can't talk about Nefertiti and talk about somebody that believed in polytheism, even if it wasn't what we believe in, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So that's why I say culturally, I'm always going to go back to culture. How you doing, Kirsten? All right, last question for the day. Last question for the day, and then we ate these leftovers. Praise y'all. last question for the day, and thank y'all for these questions. I believe. Well, let me just read it. Let me not go off of my memory. Last question for the day. Should a non-believer eat the Passover? I don't want to damn anyone's soul by allowing them to. Last year, somebody watched the SOC service and ate with you, and you were told that was against Scripture. So that's somebody talking about eating. You know, if you eat or drink of this cup unworthily, you eat or drink damnation unto yourself. So put it like this. Because that's kind of a church communion way of looking at it, but there's reality, there's truth to that. So eat or drink of this cup. So a lot of people come from the context, the church context is if you haven't been saved, some people even if you haven't been baptized, but if you haven't been saved, you don't believe, you shouldn't partake in communion, right? But we're not talking about communion, we're talking about Passover. So we have to make sure, because people would use that, but that's used as something called the communion scripture. But that's not we don't believe in communion, we believe in Passover. All right, so we got that part a little down somewhat. We have to at least start there. Number two, yes. So if you eat or drink of this cup unworthily, but here's the deal: this is not just a standalone scripture. You got to go back to what we call the Pentateuch, right? To Tanakh. Moses is writing out law and things like that as he given to the Most High, and it says if we don't even follow the holy days, it says that we can be cut off from Israel. Okay. So this is not so first and foremost, if somebody's observing something, I believe that you can have family members, you can have friends, you can have people who are just trying to see what y'all is talking about. They can partake in Passover, right? Because the cup is just one part of Passover, correct? So even just if we're just going to be the person's trying to use certain dogma, and I'm not even saying it's bad. Dogma is all right, but if we're using certain types of dogmatic principles, we got to at least be there, right? There's always precepts, right? So if we're talking about the cup in particular, the cup is talking about in particular those who believe that Christ, right, gave his life. Because the Passover used to be the wine and the stuff before we said we do this also in remembrance of Christ. See, as often as we did it, we always did it. And technically, we didn't realize that we were looking towards the Messiah and actually having somebody whose bread or whose body would be broken, the bread, and whose blood would be shed like that on that level, the wine. So when we get to the bread and the cup, remember there's a whole meal, but then the bread at the end, there's supposed to be a specific thing that you do over the bread, and then at the end they would save some of the masasa or the masa, or as people say now, the matzav or the matzah bread. They would save a piece of that for the end, and they would also save the last cup of wine for the end when it started becoming more ceremonial. On the first night, they just ate and they left. right. And so that's kind of like what the first one was. The second, the third one, fourth one, you start getting a little more ceremonial, start having a lot of different things in there, right? But when you eat of the bread at the end and you drink of the cup at the end, right? So they would have had several things of wine. They would have had several pieces of bread, but there's supposed to be one that you serve in the end. There's supposed to be one cup that you have at the end, right? So when they had this at the end, right, when they have this one cup at the end, then what are you doing? We're saying at the end that this in particular, we're focusing in really on Christ now, and we're focusing in really on the wine, right? Christ, he separates the bread, right? So they've been eating, they've been having bread, they've been having the bitter herbs, they had the lamb, all this stuff. But now at the end, he separates this last piece of bread. He says, hey, now this is what this bread means. Every time when you do this ceremony, continue to do Passover, but now every time you do Passover, take time out to do this bread like this. It represents my body. Think on those things, right? Every time that you take this, drink this wine now, right? At the end, this represents my blood, right? And I will not drink of it until I see you again. So the bread and the wine, right, is talking about those who believe, and those who believe not just only in Israel only, if we be honest, even though obviously Israelite faith, Passover, we should do these things correctly. But if they're observing the Passover meal and they believe, watch this, that they can be in Christ. Matter of fact, let's go there. Let's read 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Let's just go there and read 1 Corinthians chapter 11 real quick. I apologize for the noise outside. I forgot they were doing all that stuff today. Is it too noisy? I got the window open because I'm trying to let some air. I like natural air coming through, but if it's too noisy, I can close it. Can you guys hear me all right amongst all that stuff that's going on outside? So we're going to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 11. And we'll just start reading at verse 23. You can hear me fine? Okay, cool. Thank you. So 1 Corinthians chapter 11, we're going to go here real quick. And thank you, Minister Tamara. You can look up Exodus 12:48. You can look up Numbers chapter 1. I'm sorry, Numbers chapter 9 as well. Right, and look up verse 14 for further instruction. But when we're speaking on these things, so watch this. So this is where Paul is. Paul says, this is actually right after what I just finished talking about, by the way, that people are like, oh, if you have long hair as a man and a woman, blah, blah. And he says, but that's not our custom. But he says, there's one thing I did leave with you. This is what I want you to do. This is a custom you should keep. He said, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, can you skip the lamb and use a substitute? Some people do. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe so, but I've never stopped anybody, right? I believe that you're supposed to participate and eat the lamb. We even when we meet together, we give vegan options because some people just aren't going to eat it. I believe that you should. It's just one time a year, and on top, you don't even have to have a bunch of it, but we're supposed to participate. But but the Bible, you could even say, some people would argue on this point, hey, it's served, but I'm just not going to partake. I'll have the bitter herb. So it's one of those things that, if we be honest, I could see people going either way. I'm just telling you personally, what we do. But those that are listening on the podcast, we're about to end on the podcast because we can't go any further without losing you guys and losing a piece of the message. So if you want to start there, 1 Corinthians chapter 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 23. And then, we'll catch you on the rest if you want to come on YouTube or Facebook and watch the rest of the recording. Thank you guys for being on. Okay. So 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 23, we're just going to start there. It says, for I have received of Yehovah that which also I delivered unto you, that Yehovah, or that Yehoshaphat, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, take, eat. This is my body, which is broken for you. This doeth in remembrance of me. To what? Remember, right? You remember something dismembered, now remember, correct? Okay, verse 25. After the same manner also the cup, when he had supped, saying, this cup is in the New Testament. Now that word is not really there, but we'll just read that as is, right? This cup is the New Testament. He didn't say that, but nevertheless, this cup is the New Testament, or this cup is bringing you back into remembrance, so to speak, in my blood. This do ye as oft as ye drink it, in remembrance, in bringing back what you were dismembered from of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, ye do show Yehovah's death, or Yehoshaphat's death, Adon's death, the Lord's death, till he come. Wherefore, whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of the Lord of Yehoshaphat unworthily shall be guilty of the body and blood of Yehoshaphat. So if you are eating and drinking of it, but you don't believe, right, that Yehoshaphat is coming back and that he's actually done this as a sacrifice for you, then basically you're the same as the ones who said crucify him. That's really what the context is, right? So this is the context. So this is where we'll let the word answer for itself, right? So this is where it's saying, like, so basically when we're eating of the bread, and by the way, when they did this, when the disciples did this, they did this not knowing exactly how things would play out, right? But this is a prophetic thing Christ is speaking about. Now, Paul, after the fact, is explaining it to us and saying, hey, think about it. Here's the situation. He's gone through the stuff. He's got the piercings in his head, 39 thorns. Like a lot of times when they make the matzah bread, there's 39 holes that end up in it, especially if you do it in a specific way that's done culturally and stuff. You got all these different things that are going on, all these different things that are happening. The blood is being shed already. His body is being broken, right? And these things are happening, and he's getting ready to be sacrificed, right? That these things are going to go into the earth realm, and even that night, what is it, Matthew chapter 27, starting around verse 50, where even his blood and stuff is going to go into the earth itself, even becoming an altar, the things that are unaltered of the earth, and they come into contact and connection with his blood, and even people who are coming out the grave that night. Where can you see us? Look up hashtag Find Kofi. Same stuff we put on our stuff that we post, hashtag FINDKOFI. That's the YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on our podcast. You can find us on Clapper. Amen. Same places we've been for a while. So feel free to look for us if they do a ban or whatever. I'm be honest with you. I'm not sweating it one way or the other. Every year there's going to be a TikTok ban. Y'all know that, right? Like just every year there's supposed to have been a TikTok ban. And it's because China's getting your information and this and that. The reality is that the pressure is trying to be put on through the government that Facebook, Meta, and okay. I didn't know they were doing all that. All right. Anyways, Facebook and Meta and different companies or whatever, they just basically want TikTok to be sold to them, so they can be the ones to get your memory, to get your memories, to have your stuff, to sell your stuff as well, to sell your secrets and all that stuff or whatever. So if it happens, whatever, right? But more than likely it won't. And TikTok makes enough money for enough companies here and stuff. Everybody's talking about the voting and all these people who are marching on Washington and stuff now and all this stuff like that. Reality is that they getting your money and stuff through these companies no matter what. This is so if it happens, cool. We've had to restart before many a time, but yeah, we're on multiple platforms. Look up hashtag Find Kofi. There's a lot of like we get no play on X. I barely post anything ever on X. but we're on X, we're on IG. We used to do lives on IG, and we didn't get that much traffic. We are on Clapper, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. So we're on most of the big stuff. We've been on other things before too. So we've looked at even trying to get in tune with what our brothers and sisters are putting out there. Sometimes they can't even. Well, I won't get into all that, but long story short, we're in a lot of different places. So if you're looking for us, you'll be able to find us. All right. But anyways, so once again, what are we talking about? We're finishing up because we got to get into at least a little bit on the Willie syndrome. We're kind of talking about it already, but we got to at least lock in a little bit. Praise God. All right. So watch this. So you can eat or drink of the blood of your husband unworthily. So here you are on the cross, right? And there's people who were saying crucify him, and there are those who realized what was going on. There were those who realized he was the Messiah. There were those that realized, including even somebody who was on the cross, right? A criminal himself, somebody who deserved death according to what he had done and being against the law. And yet they themselves had done what? And all that stuff we're talking about, right? And all that stuff that we're talking about, what happened still? And all the stuff that we're talking about, he still is able to still be. It says, this day, this period of time, you shall be with me in paradise. Even in that moment, right? So you can have people who are there, right? So basically, if we put it this way, Passover, even think about the original Passover, the origins of Passover. We're coming out of Kemet. Did we come out of Kemet by ourselves? No. Were there people who were Kemetic and Cushitic even, who would have put blood on the doorposts? Yes. Did we become a nation only with Israelites by blood, or those who became even grafted in? Of course. So Passover is not only designed just to be like, hey, if you're an Israelite, you can come on in, right? If you're willing to come in, if the blood is on the doorpost, if we tell you what we represent, if you're willing to, now we can't do this thing that some people do where it's like, well, I don't really eat lamb, but I like pork or whatever. Can we just change the pork for that? No. This has to be sacred. This has to be solemn. This has to be hakodash, holy, right? It's got to be set apart. Yeah, and that's not for us to judge. Yahweh will judge their heart posture. Exactly, right? If they're coming in, though, and they're willing to follow the things, they're willing to pray what's going on, they're willing to eat and we eat, they're willing to be part of the stuff, then by all means, let them sit at the table. But you're having really a sacrifice. What's happening at the sacrifice? So if they're willing to come in, they might not. Watch this. Somebody might be delivered because of Passover service this year. We've had people whose parents can't stand SOC, can't stand me, don't like what I'm teaching their child, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we've had people straight up, right? I've talked to them and this and that, and they basically think I'm crazy or I'm. Oh, hold on one second, y'all. My goodness, they doing stuff today. I had no clue what they're doing. Okay, sorry about that. I was not expecting all this noise. It's getting a little too much. Okay. But yeah. And what are we talking about today? Sorry. Okay. So yeah. So sometimes people have been saved where they've sat down, or at least they've been at least willing to hear more than they ever had before, because they've actually been invited by some of you. They sat down. We've seen them on camera and everything, and they sit down with us, or some of them have shown up to things that we've done, and they go, oh, okay, like this is fine, this is cool. I know, some people even thought, there's people who came last year, multiple people came last year to different things that we put on, and they came with their spouses or whatever, because they were like, we don't trust y'all, we think y'all might be a cult or something. I was like, whatever, come on, I get it, that's your spouse, make sure they're safe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna change up because you coming, but if you want to come on, then you're gonna be respectful. I'm gonna respect you. So you'd be surprised, right? But there's a lot of stuff that happens like that, right? So it could be your behavior, but you make sure you are the keeper of Pasach or Passover, right? Don't treat it like Easter service, or don't treat it like this, or don't try to make it comfortable, or make it comfortable as possible. But you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Like, when you showing up to this, you showing up to what we do. This is our report. This is our culture. This is our feast, right? This is our holy day, or this is Yah's holy day that He has commanded by law that we're supposed to participate in. right? If you can't handle it, then you don't have to participate. But we're not going to like just turn you away just because. So you can be the person who's the criminal who deserves death and still show up to the Passover and be hanging there with him. That's what the goal is anyways, is that those of us who are being sacrificed, we know we deserve. There's some that deserve and are sitting up there and saying, yeah, if you think you all that, then save us. And you in the same position and you actually deserve to be there. But there's some of us who are up there and are like, hey, look, man, shut up. Look, we deserve this. But now being in your presence and seeing what's going on, look, man, just remember me. Just put me back in the family. Can you do that? And then he'll turn to you in the midst of all that and say, this day you'll be with me in paradise. So that's the worthily piece. It's not for us to figure out that part of it. Now, somebody coming in and they bringing pork all over the place. Somebody coming in, they cussing and fussing. Somebody coming in being like, man, whatever. I don't understand what y'all doing. Well, that's unworthy for sure, right? That's blasphemy. That's just straight disrespect, and we don't got to abide disrespect. Right? You ain't gonna come up in the house of the Lord and disrespect. Like, I'll give Muslims a lot of credit. Y'all be saying all this stuff, whatever. You try to go into a Muslim place of worship. You try and go into a mosque and see if you're gonna go in there with your shoes on. We ain't just gonna come in there and disrespect. These people who are very peaceful, they might hit you across your jaw because you ain't coming in here just any kind of way now. That's the problem that we have, is we think that holiness means being a doormat. No. You ain't coming in here just disrespecting. You know what I'm saying? If you come in here, this is, we'll outline it. We'll tell you this. We can even tell you what to do, what to wear, blah, blah. Like, obviously, you don't have to do everything 100% that we're doing because you might not be with it. But if you coming in here, this is the rules. This is the regulations. Right? That's always trying to tell you. If you come in here, please respect. Thank you for the love. Appreciate you. Right? So anyway, so when it talks about unworthily is something that people take, and usually it's from a communion mindset. It's usually from a mindset: are you saved? Do you filled with the Holy Ghost? Did you go to our church? Have you been baptized? Are you a member? Are you tithing? Right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that we kind of take from other things and try to bring in with this. Alrighty. So yeah, if you drink, so how do we know? So what does it say? Verse 28. But let a man examine himself. Right? I'm not here to examine you when you show up. I'm going to let you examine yourself. You better know the word. That's why you're supposed to have a relationship, right? Let a man examine himself. Now, this is even something people don't talk about, but let's go into this. Let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For he that eateth and drinketh unworthily eateth and drinketh damnation to himself, not discerning the Lord's body. This is the Lord's body. This is what happened at the cross, right? Verse 30, for this cause many are weak and sickly among you, and many sleep. There's a lot of y'all who are in this walk and don't even think about the Lord's body anyways when you're eating. So are you worthy of damnation too? We keep forgetting, Paul talking to people who are supposed to be trying to get this together, whether Israelite or grabbed in. You're supposed to be trying to get this together. You still ain't got it all together. So do you deserve damnation? Verse 31, for if we would judge ourselves, you're not the standard. Don't worry about judging yourself, right? Be judged by the standard. If we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged, right? So we're going to be judged by the standard, by the word, not by you, not by your standard. Our righteousness is as filthy rags. It says that Clark, right? All right. So therefore, but when we are judged, we are chastened. When we are judged, we are what? We are chastened. He chastens those who he loves. So when we are judged, we are chastened of Yehoshua, or of Yehovah, or of Adon, that we should not be condemned with the world. So better to discipline yourself now and even go through the steps and process now. Let them start dealing with this stuff and become disciplined under this now, rather than have to be judged and condemned with the world. Wherefore, my brethren, when you come together to eat, tarry one for another. If any man hunger, let him eat at home. So don't come here, because we're not even supposed to eat Passover meal to get full, right? That's not even the goal of Passover meal. It's not you can, but that's not the goal, right? Remember, they were eating to leave. It's a reminder that we don't belong here. It's a reminder that we're supposed to get out of this system. It's a reminder that this stuff is not for us. So if you're coming only to eat, right, that whole Sunday dinner thing, Easter dinner thing, he said, no, don't even come here with that mindset. If a man hunger, make sure you full when you come here, because we're not even giving out huge portions. Even as far as how much lamb and stuff costs and everything. If you come in here, right, even when we send out the Passover packages, we do pretty decent, but them things is we don't make any money off. We lose money on the Passover packages when we send them out. I don't know if we're doing them again this year or not, right? Because they actually take a lot of effort, and it actually we end up losing a lot. And usually, it's us, it's our family. Even though we ask you guys to give a certain donation, it's usually coming out of my pocket, out of Elder Alma's pocket, right? And then even the stuff that we have where we send the packages and everything through that system we have set up, all that cost. So like a lot of people don't realize, like it's not about getting full. Right? We ain't out here trying to make sure you full physically. This is about a spiritual thing. You feel me? All right. So if any man hunger, let him eat at home, that ye come together not unto condemnation. So you could be coming there trying to get full. That could mean that you're in condemnation. You see what I'm saying? We have a real weird thing. Also, here's another thing that's implied but not necessarily talked about. If Christ gave his life for forgiveness and you can't forgive somebody else, right? You need to get up from the table or get away from the house and make sure you've forgiven everybody so you can come back and participate. If not, you could eat or drink damnation to yourself. There's a lot of things culturally that are going on here. Paul is trying to explain this real quick to the Corinthians who are asking all these questions about things that are getting outside of culture. He's like, look, that's not even the stuff I told you. He says, focus on this. I showed you Passover. Start there. Right? I showed you Passover. Can we start the Passover? That's basically what this is you giving me all this stuff. And yes, I'm answering, I'm doing, and I'm talking about this, and I'm talking about women's hair, and I'm talking about men's hair, and I'm talking about what you wear. I'm talking about usurping authority. I'm talking about people who are brave enough and brazen enough to have incest and stuff, and then even try to do incest in places of worship and craziness like that, and be like crazy stuff. He said, I'm fine, I'll deal with all this, but can we get back to culture? There's one thing of Yahweh, there's one thing of Yahashua, there's one thing of Israel, there's one thing of the kingdom. I did leave you. Passover. Right? So it's deeper. We just only use this one scripture in a box, but obviously there's other scriptures that go with it, even outside of Corinthians. But this is a whole epistle, it's a whole letter. So there's a lot of things that if you are not worthy, he's talking about before he even gets to just Passover. But he says Passover is something that can help us to connect and deal with those things. So ultimately, for the person that asked the question, and I know for your specific situation, I would say that you have done nothing wrong. The person you're asking about hasn't done nothing wrong, and they're more than welcome to participate, and we'd love to see him, whether in person or whether virtually. Praise God. All right, hopefully that helps. All right, so those are the 4 questions from yesterday. Praise God. We've kind of already been in our theme for today, what we're going to put in our Leaven box, but we're going to I guess officially go into it today. What we're going to put into the Leaven box, what we're going to remove. Remember when we're having this stuff of removing the sin from our home. Today we're going to talk about Willie Lynch syndrome. Needs to be removed. All right, some of you already know about Willie Lynch syndrome. It is what it is. Some of you don't, but we're going to talk about it real quick. We've kind of talked about it already. It's kind of something you can't help but talk about because it's just something that's so ingrained into our people, unfortunately, and our culture. And so a lot of decisions, a lot of things that we decide are usually based off of a Willie Lynch mindset. For real. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to be pretty about it. I will try my best because I know there's going to be somebody going to get mad, especially on TikTok. They're going to try to restrict us, right? This whole series is going to be one of the things where I'm going to be very, I'm not going to dance around subject matter, but I'm going to dance around the word choice I use, if that makes sense. Because a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about is messing with people's theology and mindset and what you've been taught over years and yada, yada, yada. And the reality is that many of us have been taught incorrectly and are focusing on things that are from our oppressor. And so we have an oppressive viewpoint. That's why even a lot of us who are getting into this walk, we can't wait to oppress the oppressor instead of love each other. We even oppress each other. We think that great marriages and stuff come from oppressing each other. Real talk. Y'all know I ain't lying. You ain't got to say amen, but you know I ain't lying. Right? I won't say I ain't never lie, but I definitely ain't lying about that. Y'all know I ain't. You know a lot of this walk. Matter of fact, there's a lot of us still, as much as we are swearing that we're trying not to. There's a lot of us still that a lot of this walk for us is, in fact, excuse me, a lot of this walk that we have, a lot of it comes from us, kind of still having a little bit of hate. But it comes from the fact that you were hated on. And watch this. If you learn from the hater, right? If you learn from the hater, how can you not be a hater? If your master is hatred, then what would you be disciplined in? If your master is hatred, what are you going to be disciplined in? Right? If your master hated you, what you going to be disciplined in? Uh-oh. I'm going to say it again. Do you hear what I'm saying? If your master is hatred, then it hates you, then what would you be disciplined in? You'll be disciplined in hating yourself. If your master hated your husband, then you'll hate your husband. If your master hated your wife, then you'll hate your wife. If your master cheated on his wife and cheated on things that were on the side, pieces of stuff, not even a human being, just a side piece, then you would learn very well. If your master said that you were supposed to be in breeding camps and didn't teach you what marriage was, and whenever you tried to at least figure out marriage, even if it was jumping over a broom, as soon as they find out that you did, not only would they sell your spouse, if not beat you guys thoroughly first, and then sell one of you, they also sell your progeny. Somebody had to be your master. Master just means teacher, right? When Christ is called master, they're not saying you own us. See, once again, you're coming from the oppressive viewpoint. Master just means teacher, right? If I'm able to, I hope I am. If I'm able to, I'm not going to push it too hard today. But if I'm able to, I'm going to go to Kung Fu. It's been a little while because I've been trying to recover and stuff. But I'm going to go again tonight. And when I go there, right, my master, right, might have certain things that he wants me to do. He teaches me. I don't have no problem calling him master and bowing down. Right, as long as he's not going to do some stuff that conflicts with what Yahweh says. Yeah, teach me, help me to grow, help me to be better, help me to continue. I might have to deal with some of the stuff that I'm starting to deal with, which are repercussions of me not doing things my whole life that I should have ate a certain way and this and that. Maybe there's some things I got to deal with for the rest of my life. Maybe there's some nerve damage, unfortunately. I learned how to eat to deal with it, but maybe it can't be corrected. And I'm not doing surgery stuff where they're going to do this and do that and move this here and move that there. That gives me further complications. I got to be on modern medicine, right? So, hey, master, show me a stretch. Show me how I can move. Show me how I can kick. Show me how I can punch. Show me I can do these things, because obviously I don't have the ability to do them within myself, right? So maybe you can show me something. But whoever is your master is what you'll be disciplined in. A lot of people don't even want masters, right? Or at least you say you don't. I don't want no master, but then you get a master's degree. You know, all a master's degree says is that you can just teach whatever the system, whatever the beast wants you to teach. Yeah, we can always be better. Right? You might, people don't want to hear it, but it's the truth. It's the truth. This is one of the biggest issues that we have as Israel. If we be honest, one of the biggest issues we have as Israel is that we can't master things because we don't want to have a master. I ain't talking about I got to be your teacher, but y'all can't even be your master. If you don't think, if you're the type, look, I'm gonna just help you out. If you're the type of person that can't be a master or what you see, it's gonna mess with you, because we don't think of ourselves as being holistic or a whole human being, 3-in-1, right? Spirit, soul, and body. But it's going to be difficult for a lot of you. That's why there have to be a lot of teachings that come through a parabolic, or parables that have to be taught. The things come through a parabolic mindset, because you got to see how it works in the flesh. A lot of you, because you've been flesh oriented and flesh driven for so long, that spirit driven is difficult. And on top of that, the flesh driven things showed you something that is imperfect. Yeah, master means to be proficient in. Amen, man, trucker. I see, right? So, and I'm sorry, Minister Tamara, I missed your comment earlier about the feast is our inheritance. Excuse me. Right? I think I probably had the scripture up on the same screen, so I might have missed that earlier. But you see what I'm saying? We're going to have a problem mastering things spiritually, because we have to first eject a lot of physical things, and somebody needs to introduce some new physical lawful things to you before you can even begin. This is why the holy days are important. If you grew up with Christmas, if you grew up with New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, so watch this. Um, you, if you're not careful, will say, I don't want to deal with an Israelite New Year because New Year's Eve is bad. So why would we have a New Year's? But New Year's is just something that is for us, right? April 9th is not the same. And by the way, spring than winter, right? It's not even the same mentality. It's not the same culture. But you'll have a difficulty because you'll come in, right? You have to come in as a little child. You have to come in as an empty vessel, so somebody can pour into you. A lot of y'all are coming on full with all this other stuff, and you haven't taken time to just do this. Do your little teapot, short and stout, right? Take your hand on your spout and tip over and pour that stuff out. There's going to be an issue with a lot of this stuff, and Willie Lynch syndrome is one of the biggest ones. Willie Lynch syndrome, you can look up the Willie Lynch letter. I won't be reading the Willie Lynch letter today, word for word. We've done that plenty of times in the past. It's just part of the series for us to eject. Remember, so we're putting stuff in our Leaven box during this 40 days. Every day we're going to put something, a new idea in. We're trying to make sure the families can participate. Every day we can put these things and pour these things out of our mindset. And I'm allowing, we're trying to teach certain principles to allow people, hey, you can do this on your child's level, on your spouse's level, maybe even if you don't want to call it Willie Lynch in front of the child because they don't necessarily know what that is. Maybe you don't think that they can know that at their level. But, you can talk about some things as far as, things that they are being taught, maybe, like what takes precedence, a president or the Most High, right? Because that's something that's Willie Lynch syndrome. Those people had Willie Lynch syndrome. You see, so these are just things that we're doing so we can put together. But this syndrome is something that we suffer from. Dr. Jordan Gray would call it PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? But these are things that we suffer from quite often. How you doing, Vito? And we suffer from this Willie Lynch syndrome. Willie Lynch now, he's basically like, for those of you who try to argue the LeBron James, the Michael Jordan, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Bill Russell, the Will Chamberlain, the Kobe Bryant, whatever. Some of y'all trying to say Steph Curry now, I don't know. But he's the Jim Brown, the Walter Payton, the Barry Sanders, the Tom Brady, whoever you think is the best, Lawrence Taylor, whatever. But he's supposed to be, Willie Lynch is like the Michael Jordan of slavery, of chattel slavery in those days. The Willie Lynch letter, which really is what he had as a speech, and then that was given and written out so that everybody could have a copy. Matter of fact, the Willie Lynch letter that you'll read online, if you look it up, it has mistakes in it because it's a copy. Matter of fact, some of the stuff in your Bibles, by the way, is why you have to be careful. Some of the stuff that's even mixed in your Bibles, depending on what version of the Bible you're reading, how old it is, etc. Remember, a lot of times they didn't even have a printing press. Even when they started coming off with something called a Bible, remember, the Bible doesn't even mean what you think. Like, you think Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth and all that. I get the context, but Bible actually just comes from a word biblios. There came to be a time like biblioteca in Espanol, biblioteca in English is referring to a library, right? So like, biblioteca, things like that, biblios. But biblios was an island or I don't know if it was an island or if it was on the shore, but biblios was a physical location. And people started going there and they started binding, scrolls and what you call books together. And so that's all a Bible is a biblios. It's just a way of saying it's a set of books. Holy means supposed to be one, even though there's many books missing from your Bible. But, so Bible, Hakodash, really is supposed to be a holy set of books or a whole set of books. That's it. That's really what it refers to. Now, that's really deep when you think about it. But as far as word usage, that's what Holy Bible actually means. Okay. And so Willie Lynch, but I was trying to say, long story short, the Willie Lynch letter, if you look at it, it'll actually have some, a lot of issues, by the way, with it as far as mistakes. By the way, I'm just being honest. I write books, and maybe this is the wrong way to go about it. I'm not the type of person to where I'm going to like try 7,000 times over to make sure that there's no mistakes. I even have other people read over the books and stuff, but I'm not really that dude where I'm going to just sit there over and over and over again. So I put books out and they be having mistakes. Not as much, like I try to make sure, but I'm just being honest. Like sometimes they come out and I'm just like, hey, if it's a spelling error or something, or there might be a grammatical error every once in a while, so be it, right? Like I'm not going to worry about it being perfection. That's part of not having, I don't worry about being under a publisher, and I don't want to be, and all that stuff. So it is what it is. Sometimes the book comes out and we have mistakes. That being said, the reader, especially if they know the culture, they know the author, and they read enough of it, you'll get the gist. You'll know what's going on with it. Well, the same thing, it happens in a lot of your Bibles where there's mistakes because these were actually handwritten. So a lot of people don't realize, like, these people not only had to be great at, the language they were doing, but they also had to be able to copy, like, word for word, and look at it, eye it, and be like, okay, I can do this. Sometimes maybe had some kind of copying paper and stuff at some point, but had to be able to eye it out and give almost a perfect rendition. Yeah, you've seen them. Matter of fact, there's people who are actually hired to like change stuff up, but have it almost perfect change. So there's a lot of stuff that literally, like lightning, that happens. And I mean, like when people use cream and stuff and make their skin lighter, like people actually going into places of Kemet, or going into places of like Ethiopia or different things, and people are hired to actually make people lighter, but still write the same stuff. They got caught. I'm not even saying this is something that I'm making up. There's stuff that you can see where people got caught doing it. But there's people today that still do this stuff, that literally can look at what you're doing, eye it out, and make it perfect. Even if you make mistakes, they'll make the same mistakes in everything that you do. Right? Right. People who can take your signature and can look at it, take a picture of it, if they can study it long enough, and be able to, right? This is not a new thing. Okay. All right. So today we're going to be talking about Willie Lynch syndrome. We want to put that in our box. But I just want to kind of say, because you'll hear some people say, well, the Willie Lynch syndrome is not even real. And do you see? And one of the reasons it can't be real is because there's mistakes in it. And yada, yada, yada. And it's like, there's still people that write stuff and make mistakes. That's not any excuse for you to try and say that the Willie Lynch letter is not real. Or, and then, well, they use words like orbit, or they use words like vacuum. They wouldn't have used words like that. Yes, they did. Like, robots existed. And do you know, like, literal robots, like, Jack Johnson, for example. Some of you think that robots that look like human beings, or robots that at least can move like human beings, are a new thing. Jack Johnson fought a robot. If you know who Jack Johnson is a heavyweight champion of the world, one of the greatest. Some people consider to be the greatest heavyweight champion of all time. But he was the heavyweight champion at the beginning of the 1900s. Right? Like, cars existed. People were doing cars on a regular basis. Not, the rich still had them, but it wasn't weird to think that there was such thing as a car in the 1890s. You know what I'm saying? Like, people had this weird perceptions of things, right? So people just be like, oh, vacuum or orbit and stuff. And it's like, well, most people still believed in the flat earth, but it doesn't mean that there wasn't somebody that didn't believe that something could orbit or move around something. Right? People believe that you can make a vacuum, you could seal something. Like, this is not new. People forget, in Kemet, in the times of Kemet at its high point, you could go down the streets and they had street lights, stuff that Romans wouldn't even have at first. You know what I'm saying? like there's this weird philosophy that we have, because we keep thinking like this, none of this stuff existed, or that we weren't, once again, an oppressive mindset, that we weren't smart enough to be able to do this stuff. You gotta remember, you gotta recall that your people had a lot of this stuff going already, and then once they were conquered, so to speak, by people who focused on war more than we did. So these people came in, they got us off our game anyways, got us to trust certain things that we shouldn't have just automatically trusted. And then after that, yeah, their whole existence had been about fighting and fighting and fighting. So once we're at a disadvantage, we lost. And when we lost, they eradicated, sometimes stole knowledge and stuff, but eradicated a lot of it, not even realizing that when they were burning down a home, that was the home of the priests. Or they were taking this and throwing this into the river, not realizing, like, that was stuff that might have been thousands of years of our story that you just threw in there. And nowadays, when we talk about these things and we're coming back into the knowledge, and people who had to hide some of the stuff from them are bringing out some of these scrolls and things now, and they're saying, yeah, and they're bringing them and scanning them so you and I can be able to listen, and then they hide them again, or be able to learn ourselves, and they hide them again, right? And people are saying, oh yeah, so like maybe they did, right? Yeah, of course we had a written language. This whole thing that talks about Israelites never had a written language. I used to even preach that mess. I had to repent. I repent. I'm so sorry I used to teach that. But people get this foolishness in your mind. Israelites had no written language. What are you talking about? Avda is the language basically goes back to Adam. That's the original language. Anything, right? You see what I'm saying? Oh, no, you got to learn Aramaic, because Aramaic is what Hebrews would have spoke. Excuse me? People of Aramaic, they didn't have a written language. They use phonetic alphabet or alphabet. What does that even mean? That means that phonetically, this is what this means. Phonetically, they had to use the sounds and the characters that you wrote, or else they had no language. I'm not saying nobody had anything outside of you, but what I'm saying is we're not going to pretend we had nothing. You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that nobody had anything, but we cannot pretend that we had nothing. Right? So, anyways, Willie Lynch is somebody who you're dealing with a lot of stuff. Willie Lynch is a person who's from what's called the West Indies, right? Really no such thing. But anyways, the West Indies. And he's somebody who has a huge property and manages quite a few slaves, chattel slaves. And he's asked to come over to Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia. Really, at this time, it's not even the Commonwealth. It is, I guess, it's part of the Commonwealth of Britannia, of England, right? Of the British, or the British. But he's asked to come over and to basically give. A lot of people don't realize it, but he's asked to give a sermon, right? Because if you look at the Willie Lynch letter, it's dated December 25th. 1712. Now, although I don't celebrate it anymore, I've been around long enough in the Western culture to recognize that December 25th is in fact Christmas Day. And if you do the math and you go back and look, it was a Christmas service. And this is not something that's irregular. You would have a service, and then after the service, you would go out and you would do a lot of times you would do stuff to slaves. Matter of fact, you would have something called a picnic, right? Those who are not familiar with the term picnic, you would literally pick an N-word. That's why I have a problem. I don't like picnics. I didn't like church picnics. I was saying this in the church, and people in the church will even tell you I don't like church picnics. Right? If you don't like family picnics, I don't like any of them, because I'm not picking an N-word to do anything. That's why even the cloth that you have white and red and black. There's going to be black skin. There's going to be pure white, and there's going to be red blood. That's where that comes from. I know you just thought it was a nice plaid theme, but no, that's why in your mind, I know. Look, I'm not saying in your mind you can't have you. I'm not saying you can't lay down a black cloth. I'm not saying you can't lay down, a white cloth or anything like that to sit upon. But no, there's a reason why in your mind you grew up seeing that red, white, or red, white, black pattern. It's because that's what it represented. There's people you can look at. Matter of fact, oh, forgive me, I'm going to say the wrong title of the book. There's a book that somebody wrote. There's a couple of them. I can't remember the name of the second one at all. But there's a book somebody wrote that's called Eat, or it's called Food, or something like that. And it actually is a book where people give gory details on how bodies were, prepared, oftentimes after church services, if I can say it like that. It's a difficult thing to deal with, but this is the oppressive mindset that you're under. It's a Willie Lynch syndrome. You were not considered to be human. You have to remember that. You have to recall that. You have to operate in that. As much as you want to say that it's made up, you can't say that you have a whole countries. Remember, because this is not when it's the Commonwealth of Virginia. He was invited to the colony of Virginia. That's which is the part of the Commonwealth of Britain. The kingdom of Britain, and the wealth that's common to the slave master there is common to the king or the queen there. That's the way that works, right? That's why Virginia and Pennsylvania, they're terrible as commonwealths, because if it's a commonwealth, then everybody who's in poverty, it should be common to the person who's the governor. But if the governor lives well and you don't, right? Commonwealth, in a sense, is not exactly the same as communism. However, A commonwealth is supposed to make sure that the king or whoever is the ruler is supposed to make sure that the subjects are taken care of. If the subjects aren't taken care of, then that's not a great commonwealth. It's not a commonwealth by definition. So he was invited, Willie Lynch was invited to the Commonwealth of Britain's colony called Virginia, right? A place where there's virgin land. And he actually describes in the letter how he realized how bad their situation was when dealing with their chattel slaves, because he was coming down the Jamestown River, which was named after their illustrious king, King James. King James himself is an African. King James' parents, African. We often, once again, not all skin folk is kinfolk. You have this mindset that it's a little different, right? I always say the wrong name here. It's not Queen Catherine. Who was King George's wife? Especially those of you who just watched that series. Who was King George's wife again? I don't know why we don't recognize I don't recognize my sister's name like that, or our big sister's name like that. And how you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Alma. Please check her out as always on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Love you, babe. Thank you for being on. Queen Charlotte. Thank you. I always try to say Queen Catherine. Anyway, so Queen Charlotte, right? Not all skin folk is kinfolk. Don't get it twisted, right? That's why you got to look at the spirit of these things. All right. Nevertheless, he says, Willie Lynch says that when he was coming down the James River, he realized that as he was coming down this Jamestown River or the James River, I forget what it's called, but as he's coming down there, named after their illustrious king and their great Christian king, and he wasn't even a Christian, right? But nevertheless, as they're coming down the river, he says that he smelled the pungency of the loss of life of those that would have been hanging and as being cursed. And he said, I see your problem already. He said, your problem is not the fact that you're trying to enslave a people or persons. Your problem is not that you made them artificial persons. That's not your problem. He says, your problem is not even really that you're offering them per se by themselves. He said, your problem is that you can't control them. I don't know if somebody caught that. The problem that Willie Lynch has, and by the way, he's doing a sermon. This is a Christmas Day sermon. They're getting ready to go out and have a picnic right after that. There would have been church announcements that said this. There are church announcements you can go find online, old church announcements where they read this stuff, reads off. Yeah, we're going to have a hanging right outside after, and hopefully, but and we'll be auctioning off body parts and and we'll be doing it to raise money for the church. This is not me making stuff up on the fly. I swear today, every time I open this window, I'm having more noise. I'm sorry, y'all. Every time I think it's safe to open that window today, we've had to deal with a bunch of mess. Anyways, so, but Willie Lynch says that's not your problem. Your problem is that you can't control. And the reason I know you can't control them is because you're trying to off them. Whether you're trying to hang them, whether you're trying to scare them, right? You're trying to do certain things or whatever, but you're trying to leave them in certain places where it's seen, where all the chattel slaves are afraid of you. And while they should be afraid of you, right? Because he keeps talking about he wants them to fear, chattel slaves to fear them. But he says, even though while you should be afraid of them, that's not really my goal. My goal is to make sure that they respect you more than they respect themselves. In other words, really his goal is that they respect, and I'm just using the colonial terms, they respect what we would call white people, and they're afraid of each other. That's because the enemy on us. Amen. Right? Catch that. And we talked before too. Willie Lynch makes it a point that you're going to have to teach not only the chattel slave or the black person this. Willie Lynch says you're going to have to teach the white person this. You're going to have to teach them they're white. Willie Lynch basically says if we're at a table and I'm a white chattel slave owner and we start having conversation and you say, well, you know what? N-word Jim is doing real well. And I'm not making it up, right? Like even look up, what is that from? Mark Twain's books and things like that or whatever, and N-word Jim, he's doing great out there. He's been doing a great job. Paul, he's been doing a great job. And then the wife says, yeah, N-word Jim, he's so great. He's so gracious. He's been doing this for little Katharina over here. And Katharina says, yes, Pa, he's doing really, really great. And Pa's job is supposed to stop everybody right there and say, hey, hold up. Don't bring N-word Jim up at this table again. He's just an N-word. He's just a chattel slave. He's not going to be there. He's not going to be that. Don't bring him up again. Yeah, Huckleberry fan, right? Yeah. So don't bring him up again. Don't bring up. That's what the job is of the person, is to make sure that his family. It says that in the Willie Lynch letter. It says that in his sermon, in his speech, that you should take every opportunity to ensure that what you would call today white supremacy, or racism, or chattel slavery, or the doctrine of discovery, or the white man's burden, or the lost cause, or manifest destiny, or even evolution, if you know what evolution is written about, right? The book written in 1859. The origin is, we're talking about Darwinism, evolution, the origin of species by means of natural selection, the origin of species by means of natural selection, or the survival of favored races in the struggle for life. Right. So it says that the people who are up top, the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, are supposed to damage and poison the mind, not just of the chattel slaves, but of everybody, because there was no such thing as a white person. We say this all the time. If you know how etymology works, there's technically no such thing as the color white. And thank you, everybody who's on Facebook, Clapper, YouTube, TikTok. Appreciate you. Right. There's no such thing as the color white. People get mad when you say that, because you've been taught that you have to be white. You get your authority, you get your identity from these labels that people have put on you. There's no such thing as the color white. White is non-opaque. White is see-through. White is reflective. White is clear. White is not a color. If you have melanin in you, therefore you can't be white. If you're alive, you can't be white by definition. There's a reason why. Anybody ever noticed this as a child? If you have a white sheet, and let's say you wanted to keep something white and you accidentally colored in the wrong spot, like let's say you colored in the eyeballs and you were trying to color like brown or peach or something like that around the eyeball, and you accidentally do, so you want to go back in and make sure that since you color it in white, you try to put the white on top of it. It doesn't work that well, does it? Right? You might have to use some white out or something like that, but it doesn't work that well once you put something there, because white, even in a sense, even though you're saying, oh, I'm putting the crown on top of the crown, it still doesn't work that well, because the see-through allows you to still see the color underneath it. Right? So white in and of itself is not a color. No such thing as a white color. It's the opposite of color. And the whiter it gets, the brighter it can get, the clearer it can get, right? But the whiter it gets, the more translucent it becomes. Hey, thank you. I was going to say this. We said at the same time. So they had to teach white people that there was a such thing as a white people, a white nation. A lot of them couldn't even vote, but they taught them that they were white. Remember, they're going to fight later on after this 1712. They're going to fight saying that we have taxation without representation. They weren't even allowed to represent themselves, but they were white. They were better because they were this made up thing. You see? So, but then he goes deeper. He says, so what we need you to do is not make these people afraid of you. You want them to fear you, to respect you, right? You want them to be afraid to let you down. You want them to be afraid for the loss of life, sure, but you want them to respect you. Matter of fact, if you read the Willie Lynch letter, it gets to a place where he says that you want them to think of you as God, that you become their God. That's why it's easy to put a white Jesus on the wall. No matter if you think he's black or olive colored or whatever, you know it doesn't make sense that he would be white, that he'd be Ashkenazi. But I can put him on the wall. I can put him in Israel. I can go ahead and tell you that he had a star that's not even mentioned in your Bible. And I can just put all that stuff in front of you, because why? Because the things that aren't your culture are more respected by your culture. Come on, Holy Spirit. That's a bar. It's a lot. That's a bar right there. Right? In hip hop culture, in African American culture, I know somebody will say, no, not a hip hop. In hip hop culture, and African American culture, and dance culture, and a lot of African cultures, right? What is not of your culture is respected by your culture. And what is your culture, the so-called culture, it becomes the things that are easy to disrespect. So we are into stuff that doesn't even make sense for us. You don't believe me? Who is it that many black people say? I didn't say white people. Let's not even do that. Who is it that what you call black people, African Americans, people of color, whatever, black people that are in the hip hop? Who do they say? Who a lot of you say? As much as you don't want to admit it, maybe it's not your thing. I'm saying those of you who are hip hop heads, you know what I mean. Who is it that most black people even will say is the greatest hip hop artist of all time? I didn't say your choice. I said, who is it that you say or that your community says, your hip hop community uplifts? And I'm not even trying to say this person has no skills. Now, there's a lot of people that say, no. Let's just be honest, right? That's why I say you got to take not the bias thing. I'm with you, by the way. I think Pac is cool. I think Biggie cool. You know, the people that we're gonna put up there. But who is it that we put up there? It's gonna usually be Eminem. I didn't say you. See, there's a lot of people that no, and I don't think. Hey, cool. I didn't say you. I said a lot of people put M first, right? Oh, definitely not Snoop. But even the people that they put up there, right? It's not true. Even if you want to go outside of Eminem, because some see that's what I'm saying. A lot of people, no, this and that, blah blah. We're different. We talking about Israel. A lot of us Israel here. A lot of us Israel here, right? I'm telling you, a lot of people put Eminem first. A lot of black people put Eminem. You ask black MCs, right? Actually, MCs don't really do this. Black rappers and the people that are the most popular now. Ask them. Not just the people that are in there. They'll tell you, right? You don't want no problems with the white boy. That's what they say, right? They'll even say, well, he sold more records and he did this. Well, yeah, white people buy more hip hop than anybody else. I mean, I'll go with you. The KRS-One should definitely be top 5 bare minimum. A lot of places would have him number 1. But let's be honest, the average hip hop fan don't even know about KRS-One, right? We having a bad concept, right? We having a bad concept, bad thought process concerning it. Right? The average hip hop fan nowadays don't even know who KRS-One is. You see, you're just keeping it real. See what I'm saying? I'm not talking about my bias. If you ask me who I think, the best hip hop, I don't even know if I have a best, but I'm going, not even necessarily obscure, but I'm going like Most Def. I was never really into Common, I never thought Common was as big as what people made him to be, but like I think he's great and everything, but he's in that ballpark. But I would go like most out of that group that we think of, on all this certain time frame and stuff. I would say like Most Def. Um, I'm definitely going KRS-One, not even just because what he was saying at a certain time. I'm talking about longevity. He's gotten better with age, for real, for real. Like his lyrics to Crazy, like that song right there. That's one of the best things I've ever heard, and that's him, as a old man, so to speak. Um, but I lean towards stuff like that, even in. No, anyways, I'm not gonna get into all that. We don't have time for me to go through my personal stuff, but I'm just saying, personally, I can go, but the average hip hop fan is looking at Eminem as the standard. Yeah, Rakim. I'm not really a big Rakim personality person, but yeah, flow wise and stuff for sure, most definitely, right? But I'm just saying, you gotta you got to look at this stuff now, and a lot of people are not thinking like you and I are thinking about this stuff. We're not looking for people, right? Black Thought is but definitely up there for sure. Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, long story short, we can make this about something that's. But I'm just trying to show you that most people are going to say Eminem. Persons are going to say Eminem. I didn't say Israel. I didn't say. But I'm saying most persons, including even rappers nowadays, not in some MCs, are going to tell you Eminem is the best. They're going to say his flow is the best. Eminem's flow is not the best, right? He has flow that's decent. He lyrically, I'll give you credit, like as far as just rhyming things together, like yeah, he can rhyme a lot together, right? He can rhyme really well. He can go pretty fast. But as far as like the best of all time, I don't think of him as that. But but once again, the average person listening to rap in any kind of way, shape, or form, Eminem. Matter of fact, many of them that's all they know, right? Right. So when we're speaking on this stuff, I'm just saying, and the reason it is because he's allowed, because of the color of his skin, he's allowed. Watch this. Look, I come from a time where people were trying to lie to us and tell us that and look, I liked a couple of the things, at least the hooks. I never liked the lyrics and stuff. I thought they were kind of, they were just poor. But forgive me, I'm just telling the truth. The hooks were nice and everything, but the Beastie Boys. There was a time that people said the Beastie Boys are some of the greatest rappers of all time. Beastie Boys definitely were never that. But a lot of people that if you wanted to work and be in certain things, or you were just trying to be like, I got love for them and too. So you said that or whatever. Right. You see what I'm saying? So we're very much so doing things based off of other things, right? And we don't look at ourselves. We look at people that are outside of the culture. Now, the Eminem story, is it a nice story? Is it a great story? Is it how somebody, I was listening and I teared up a couple days ago, to be honest. I hadn't heard it in a long time, but the song that he does to Hailing, for his daughter Haley, that hush, little baby, don't you cry. Like that song is powerful. I'm not here to tell you M has no flow at all. What I'm here to tell you is that we automatically say Eminem is up top because of what he looks like. The reality, though, is if you're talking about lyrics, he's not the best lyrically by far. You can't tell me he's better than most. You can't tell me he's better than Common. You can't tell me he's better than Twalib, right? Matter of fact, people say, man, drugs and this and that and all this stuff. Sure, has Eminem matured and gotten better? Sure. But you allowed him. I remember it's not his first album either. First, some of his first albums and stuff are the ones that nobody really knows about and stuff, the ones that he was sitting up there and saying all the stuff about the black girl that he broke up with and saying how all black women is this and blah, blah. And I get it. You can say, well, he broke up with them until you go, time out. Do you guys know that when he got with Dre, Dr. Dre allowed this to happen, by the way? Once again, your people allowed him to do this because you look up to people outside your culture and you're in the bed with people like Jimmy Iovine and stuff. I don't mean literally, but figuratively, right? You don't know who Jimmy Iovine is, then you won't even comprehend what I'm saying. But all right, Sister Shima, have a great day. I'm sorry, Stormy. Have a great day. Excuse me. Yeah, Dweb, or Talib. I don't know why I should be saying Twalib all the time. Talib, Dead Prez, even though they're pretty much only known for a couple songs, but if you follow the catalog, but when you look at Eminem when he came out, Dr. Dre had to actually stop. Like his stuff was so far out. Remember, Eminem was known for being out there. He was known for saying the most crazy thing out there, right? What y'all call his first album with Dre. I'm telling you, I can go through some of the lyrics probably still in my head. Like, that song, I never meant to give you mushrooms, girl. I never meant to bring you to my world. And now you're sitting in the corner crying. And now it's my fault, right? Or, hi, kids. Do you like violence? Do you want to see me put 9-inch nails through each one of my eyelids? I don't remember the next part. Do you want to try something like I did? Yeah, I can't remember the next part. But you see what I'm saying? Like there's stuff out there that everybody said you shouldn't do that, but with him it was cool. Why? Because it's all right. He's given the opportunity to do that. You know what I'm saying? But there's song where literally the end of his song, he's offing his wife, doing something to her throat. You hear him dragging her body across the ground, and I can't remember if he puts it in the trunk or he throws it into the water. And part of his lyrics is her screaming for her life, and then he's coming back and talking and yelling back at her. Now, when did it start being okay for that? To be okay for that? And by the way, there's a lot of violence in hip hop. There's a lot of violence in rap and these rappers and stuff today that shouldn't be there. I will be the first to admit that. But I can't really recall a song where somebody was doing that to his wife, the mother of his children, and they were letting you hear blood curdling stuff happen. Even blood gurgling. Forgive me, I won't go any deeper than that. Stuff happening. Yeah. Or Dear Stan. Yeah. Now, Stan, I actually thought that was kind of clever, but even that. And that was what, second or third album? Or what we call second or third album. But his stuff, so remember, his stuff was designed to be really crazy and out there. He was supposed to reach an audience. And part of the reason they wanted him is because he was close enough to what black people were doing, and also simultaneously a bunch of white people were going to be able to identify with them. Cool, no problem. Hey, that's how a lot of product is sold. You sell to those who are going to be your clientele, right? Just like hip hop, the reason why violence is put out there is because it's supposed to be something that's apropos. It's just what these people happen to do. We put a parental advisory sticker on it. We post it on there, no problem. Go ahead, let them do what they do. Hey, it's cool to dress like that, this and that. Just realize once you get to a certain age, be ready to put your suit and tie back on and come back into our community. That's the way this has worked for a long time, right? It's funny to make fun of them. They were the first persons to put blackface on because we thought it was funny and clever to have black on black, because it showed how really inferior they were and how they would do whatever we said. Then we started putting it on our faces. Cool. At some point, you got to take the black face off, then we'll come back into the community. That's the culture that you uphold. That being said, going back to Eminem, even Eminem, when his first, what y'all call his first album came out, after he had the ones where he was saying racist stuff about the girls and all that stuff, and how all black girls was this, and how black girls, they just there to take your money and stuff. I would play it as a shout out, but I want to end that. I don't want to. I don't want to just end there. But Dr. Dre and then they had to actually almost scrap everything that he put out and ask him to redo everything, because he had so much racist stuff on there that they had to stop it. Dre was gonna let it slide, and somebody had to be like, Dre, come on, man. Like what you doing? Like, because they not what you doing to your community. They were like, even white people are gonna be offended by this. You're gonna lose us money. You're doing all this stuff, and you're gonna end up losing on what you're trying to build up with Aftermath Records and all that. And so he stopped it and redid it because the stuff was so out of pocket. This happens all the time. Like, for example, that song, I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. The original is crazy. The original is like just straight sexual song. That wasn't what it was supposed to be at all. Or those of you who know that song, I'm loving you tonight, that he did with Biggie. Of course, that was I'm effing you tonight. All right, this happens all the time where people are going to do something that is so crazy and out there that even people who are like, yo, we ain't going to be able to sell this in certain ways if you don't change this. How you doing, Tender Shisha? So that's why that stuff changes. So getting back to the Willie Lynch syndrome, we're carrying a lot of different things that are there, and this is designed to make sure that you fight each other, that you respect other people outside of your culture more than you respect even a culture. Matter of fact, if the culture has been taken from you, or people have been offed for simply living your culture, then what else won't somebody do to you? Of course, you respect somebody else more than you respect yourself. Yeah. So you have a lot of stuff that pops up. You don't even recognize. Once again, here's a little homework assignment for people who think I'm lying, right? I'll just give you a little bit of rabbit hole. You ready? Go look up Eminem lyrics racist, and you'll see clearly. You can listen to it for yourself. I'm gonna be honest, he definitely has improved a lot before he got to the place where he got signed, because man, it's terrible. It's him basically trying to beatbox. It's him trying to do like his own version, kind of sort of like the you got what I need, but you say he just a friend, that thing, right? It's like him trying to beatbox and then rap over his own thing. It's really corny. But if you want to listen to it, if you can make it through that, I'm not even talking about just the lyrics. I'm talking about the beat and the rhyme scheme and all that stuff. It's really corny, and he's probably even drunk. I'll give you that. But still, just because you're drunk doesn't mean that I shouldn't believe what comes out your mouth. Right. So you can go look it up for yourself. Still on YouTube. Something that he supposedly has apologized for and says, I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I don't want to be brought up. And that's usually what happens. Somebody can do something, can still be thinking something, whatever, but once they realize it's wrong, bring it up. And then, hey, he came out and he did a freestyle and he said that he's with us now. So since he's with us now, and then he wasn't going to do the Super Bowl without 50 Cent, then that means that, he got black friends. So how could he be racist? Yeah. You said you used to laugh at that one? Yeah. And by the way, everybody, once again, on Facebook, Clapper, YouTube, TikTok, we appreciate you. We won't be on too much longer. It's almost time for us to take our leave. But you have to realize that's what's going on. I'm not going to, we've actually gone through the Willie Lynch letters several times. Actually, one of the times they took us down, they say it's because we went over the Willie Lynch letter, partially. So we've gone through this stuff quite a bit. So you can study this for yourself. I'm just bringing out certain things you have to realize. Also, to the Willie Lynch letter, like when we say, well, why aren't there strong parents? And why aren't there strong men? And why aren't there strong this? And why do they keep doing this stuff to each other? The Willie Lynch letter says, if we put this stuff into effect, this is in Virginia, right? The colony of Virginia, 1712. That means you have to do the math. That means that the grandfathers, some of the parents of the grandfathers and the great-grandfathers of people like George Washington, Virginia slave owner, Thomas Jefferson, Virginia slave owner, Monroe, Virginia slave owner, Madison, Virginia slave owner. Those are 4 out of the 5 first presidents who you call basically like the founding fathers, the presidents that come out of that founding father ilk, the ones that still would wear their socks and their stockings and stuff and have it coming up, a little past the kneecap or up to the knee. Those people, right? Those are the people who are going to be raised by the people that are here at this meeting. Places like by the Lynch family who was in Virginia and still having places called Lynchburg. And you popularize lynching people. And people just say, oh, this has no saying on stuff. People still live in Lynchburg. People still get lynched. All right. And somebody had to teach us this was all right. Not just black people, they had to teach white people too. This is why I keep trying to say, really, once again, there's no such thing as a white person. I'm not saying that you don't exist. I'm saying if you have melanin, by definition, you can't be a white person. And if you have melanin, it means that you are alive. If you're alive, by definition, you cannot be white. So this whole thing that even somebody taught you on you're trying to fight for white rights or whatever, it's foolishness, because what is a white right? What is a black right, in all honesty? But what is a white right? You see what I'm saying? If there's no such thing as a white person, then how do you have a white right unless somebody has you believing that you not being alive, lawfully, legally considering yourself an artificial person, not even considering that you live by your straw man more than your actual human being? We don't even think about these things. The straw man means property. So now you, as the white person, don't even realize that you have become the chattel slave. But because you won't defend the chattel slave, or because you won't defend the right of the chattel slave, but will defend the right of the slave master, you haven't really recognized, or the system even of the slave master, you haven't recognized that you have become enslaved too. If you are paying taxes, you are in debt. Anyone who pays debt by definition is a slave. You don't even know that, and don't even realize that you don't have to. I'm sorry, what'd you say near Lynchburg is Black's Run and News Creek? Yeah. Right. But we don't want to talk about that. And that's just Virginia. And that's just parts of Virginia. Right. We don't want to talk about sundown towns. It's still lawful to have them. We don't want to talk about how was it in 2022 or 2023, even one of them, that in Georgia they had Mexican and African American slaves that they had to free. We don't want to talk about that on Netflix. You can listen to people who are still alive today telling you how they were still enslaved in chattel slavery and had never heard of Martin Luther King Jr. or any of these people that from that ilk that you think everybody knew about. They had never heard of them, but they had watched their mothers be raped and things of that nature, right? Somebody had to teach us that this stuff doesn't exist. Somebody had to teach you that George Washington is the first president, and he's not. He tells you, he's quoted as telling you his 2 favorite presidents while he still wasn't president yet. This means somebody's lying to us. It's not that you're evil. It's that somebody's lying to us. You said, is a white version of light brown? No, white just means white by definition. I know people change definitions all the time. Here's a quick etymology thing, right? Fine means it's together, right? If it's defined, it's broken down from what's fine. If it's redefined, then it means it's been broken down from what's been broken down. That's why we have to refine it. We have to make sure it's fine again. right? We might call it salvaging. Like even the word salvation literally means not to become better than you've ever been. Salvation actually means we're trying to get you back to your original intent, right? So the word, when it was fine, white, when it's original in its origin, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against origin, against principalities. And its origin of white literally means that it's clear, it's bright, it's see-through, it is transparent or translucent. I always mess up which one that means what. So forgive me on that one. But it's colorless, and the whiter it becomes, either the brighter or even. So you can have like by definition, you can say there's like a white blue or a blue white. What does that mean? That means that it's blue. I can see it's blue, but it's getting brighter, or it's getting like harder to see the blue, or I can even see through the blue. Right? That's that. You can get a white car and you'll see the color, you'll see the dirt on the white car, right? We have a white car and you'll see dirt on the white car more than you see it on the black car. When I've had a black car, blue car, all this stuff, whatever, and all the cars that you have, and you compare it to the white car, I can let the white car sit out there and not be washed a lot longer, right? So polar bear, white fur. That's clear fur. Underneath the polar bear, it has black fur on the interior, but it has white fur. That's why when it gets darker outside, the polar bear doesn't shed white fur and you get brown fur. The polar bear, you can start seeing through the clear fur some of the darkness of the black fur on the inside, and also you can see the reflection of all the stuff around it. White fur, clear. If you talk about a white blood cell, you can see through it. It's clear. If you talk about white snow, look up white snow. If you can look up white snow under a microscope, right? White snow under a microscope is clear. That's what white means. So if you have melanin, right, just like if plants have chlorophyll, even if you see cauliflower comes out of a green. So it has chlorophyll in it. So it's alive because it has chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is basically plant melanin. If you have melanin, you're alive. Once you pass away, you're not going to have melanin in you. You see that? So if your melanin leaves, the thing that even provides color, even if you're albino, you have melanin in you. By definition, you cannot be white. White was something that was introduced by people who had the power and position to be over everyone and trick everyone. And once they trick everyone, what happens? Then everybody becomes somebody who's enamored with white. Not just white people, but even those enslaved by white people. Everybody thought that white was the standard because the person who's got the money said, well, at least you look like me. So even though you'll actually live less. Like here's an example of how we need to get rid of the Willie Lynch syndrome, right? You ready? Overseers, who were white men who were put in a position to oversee chattel slaves and stuff like that and things on master's property, right? Thank you, sister. So you said everybody's a slave. Oh, hey, I was expecting that at some point. Hey, how you doing, champship? Is that the best you got? Everybody was a slave. Cool. So then everybody who was enslaved, their slave, the people who tried to own them, all of them are wrong. So if it was wrong for everybody to be enslaved, then it's wrong for the people I'm talking about to be enslaved. So it's wrong for the Irish to be enslaved. So the English should have to talk about that and should have to deal with that and make sure that they make it correct, or at least stop doing it correct and stop defending it. Right? That's like everybody been punched in the face. Yeah, but if I haul off and punch you in the face, is it correct or not? Doesn't make sense, right? You see what I'm saying? So people miss this. People, don't comprehend. People get into foolishness. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, everybody's had somebody cuss them out. Yeah, so if I cuss you out for no reason, is that cool? If I cuss you out right now and I say I'm cussing you out because everybody been cussed out before, it doesn't make sense. Now, if you're saying because I've been cussed out, I should be strong enough to be cussed out and not necessarily resort to doing something back. Yeah, but that means that you're trying to say is one-sided, and you're trying to say since you cussing me out, but I've been cussed out before, I shouldn't go ahead and say anything at all to defend myself. Or if you cussing me out and getting in my face and you start walking towards me, I shouldn't be ready to hit you in your jaw because, hey, even though you haven't hit me, you still coming at me while cussing at me. Should I not defend myself? This is the thing that people try to do. This is why we got to put Willie Lynch syndrome down where it is, and we got to come out of it because righteous is righteous. That's right. You see what I'm saying? Like, so somebody sitting up there literally, man, I'm cussing you out. I'm cussing you out. I'm walking towards you. I'm walking up on you. Now I get it. Like, okay, fine. But you 5 feet, you 4 feet, you 3 feet, you 2 feet. Yeah, I'm about to go ahead. I might give you a kick or a hit. to back you up, bare minimum, or a push or something to let you know. Or I might even take a stance. Might have that thing for you, depending on when you catch me. I might have to take a stance to let you know, bro, you come closer. I will defend myself. Right? That should be fine. But people get upset with that. If you believe that it's wrong, then it's wrong. If you believe that it's wrong, because here's the deal: if I was cussing you out and walking towards your child, you wouldn't say that. Your child can't even protect himself. Your child is young. Your child is helpless. Your child is innocent. But these people could stomp on a child and would have looked at you wrong for stomping on a puppy, but would have stomped on a child. And you would have said, and your whole thing is, well, everybody went through that. Not everybody went through that. Not everybody went through that. Not everybody went through, you're not even allowed to be married. Not everybody went through that. Not everybody went through that as far as you're born with that skin color. Not even you're born because of your family name. You're born because of your skin color. Because of your skin color, you would not be allowed to have a name, a language, or a history unless I give it to you. Not everybody's people went through that. So you're a liar. And a half lie is all, a half truth is always a whole lie. So yes, half of the truth, part of the truth. Everybody went through slavery in some way, shape, or form, and that's not even 100% accurate. But if you want to say close enough, fine. Close enough to 100% of everybody. And let's just even say you're correct about that. Just because everybody went through slavery doesn't mean they even went through the same chattel slavery. That's just like when our sisters, when our women who need our protection and stuff, and we say, man, yeah, but men go through this and blah, blah. No, look, your sister, when she's out in the middle of the night, doesn't feel safe going from the building to her car or walking through an alley and stuff. And rather than saying, hey, well, I'm a man, I got to go through my stuff too. I'm a black man, I got to go through my stuff too. Let me make sure you get through the alley safe. You know? You said, yes, we are speaking specifically on chattel slavery right now. Yeah, right. Can we do that? Like, if my wife is like, I don't feel safe. Like, there's times that my wife is going to try and get some business done and make, like, even recently, right? Like, I'm not feeling that well, and so she might do some things or whatever. But if she says she's going to a certain place, I will get my hurt self up and limp myself to the car. And if necessary, like, be ready to get whatever adrenaline I need to get ready. Because if she's going to a certain place, I don't want her to be there by herself. And she might even kind of tell me with a tone of her voice sometimes, like, I'm going blah, blah, or whatever. Or are we doing? Because she wants me to, even if it's just she wants me to show up. So just because we both are human beings and we both go through things, I'm going through my own thing or whatever, doesn't mean that I wouldn't make sure my wife is protected. This is when it's easy for us to see. And it's 11:11, I think. Yeah, it's 11:11, babe. Love you. Right. This is why we can tell that many people don't even believe in all people are human beings the way that they say they are, or the way they say they do. Because if you believe that everybody was a human being, then you would protect us like human beings. Right? But you say that because you're going through something, you shouldn't protect somebody else. You know how many days I'm going through something and I still got to answer a phone call or pray for somebody or make sure somebody gets somewhere safe or make sure that I'm teaching or doing this and that or whatever. You know how many times that I have to come outside of myself, because that's what human beings do for other human beings. Your humanity means that your humanity allows for my humanity to protect your humanity. If my humanity doesn't protect your humanity, I should be labeled as inhumane. And we don't get any days off from humanity. No days off from humanity. That's your problem. Why you want to take the day off from humanity when it comes time for your people to be the ones that are put up on display? But then when you say black people, this and that, you're okay with going ahead and putting us on display. Why? There's no days off of humanity, right? If my father was wrong for something, then he was wrong. If my father mistreated my mother in some ways, then he was wrong. I don't get to take days off of that. And because of that, that's when I have the ability to say, right, I can't talk to my son about changing if I didn't change some things from what I saw. I can't talk to somebody else's child about changing if I don't hold my son accountable. I can't talk to my wife about changing if I don't hold myself accountable. And even with that, it's not even my responsibility to change her. She's got to see at least that I'm wanting to change myself. That's how I was supposed to start, because I'm the foundation of the family. What you talking about? See, but the Willie Lynch mentality has it to where you are automatically trying to separate. See, but once again, here's part of it that we don't want to talk about. Thank you for the love. Here's part of it that we don't want to talk about, but let's just bring this up real quick. We won't be on too much longer. I won't do what we did yesterday. Yesterday was Q&A anyways. But real talk. Let's just have a teachable moment. Person's already probably dipped anyways, but this is a teachable moment. Let's just have an honest dialogue, honest conversation. Y'all ready? Here we go. All right, we've been having honest dialogue, but let's have extremely honest focus in this, okay? One of the reasons why people don't want to hear somebody speak like this is because of what I look like in the first place, which further proves what's going on. That's part of the Willie Lynch experience. Anybody who looks like me and is considered by my people at all to be in a leadership position at all, my people are supposed to be against them because we're supposed to still be mentally enslaved, and others who are benefiting from it or have benefited from it or don't like the fact that maybe somebody who looks like them has benefited from them, they are supposed to go ahead and come against me as well. That's the system we're raised in. Love me or hate me for saying it. I'm just being honest. This is, once again, it's like what we talked about with the hip hop stuff, right? Hip hop, you might not say Eminem is number one, but the average rap person is going to say what? Eminem is number one. That's the goal. Right? Is it Indigo Rain? Right? So yeah, a lot of you listening, maybe that's not your thing, but let's be honest. The average person walking around, I know what it is to do motivational speaking, to travel, to be invited, this and that, or whatever. Okay, do it in churches, do it in the mosque, do it in a Buddhist temple, do it in here, do it in wherever. Okay, all right. I know where it is to like speak or at least be part of conversations, meetings, etc. Be invited to certain things. People try to ask you questions, whatever the case might be. Do it as a Jehovah's Witness, knocking on door. I've done it in many different places. I'm not a Christian any longer, but I'm still an activist. I'm still kingdom. I'm still hostile, etc. Okay, as that, I'm here to tell you that when I go into a place, right, if a corporation invites me into something, we're going to have to come to some kind of agreement, right? Because I'm not coming in suit and tie. I'm not coming in, cut the hair, fresh, blah, blah, right? I'm former military. If the military wants me to come and speak, I'm not coming, making sure that I look a certain way, this, that, whatever. No, right? I'm, what I'm saying? If I come in, right, I have to come in as myself, but that's something that loses me a lot of gigs right off point because a lot of people, they shut me down because I'm not acceptable in their society just because I am who I am. In our society, in our culture, in my culture, in my privacy, I'm fine with who I am, and so are my people, right? But let's be honest. When I teach, there's a lot of people that will say, well, like I get this all the time. People will say, well, you're saying all this stuff. Prove it to me. Where's your degree? Where is this and that? It's like, man, I started at university with the help of y'all, right? But I was led to a place where I teach and started a university, right? We have other people on staff and stuff. We've started a whole organization. We reach people around the world, right? Loved by countries. And when I say countries, it's not just Black folk, right? The Irish tried to get us to make a movie about my life. And wanted us to come over there and spend a month, 2 months over there. Said you will not stop. But people don't know who I am. People just come into the stuff because your automatic thing is to look at me and just be like, oh, okay. Right? To just look at me and be, okay. He must be this. He must be racist. Oh, he mentioned chattel slavery. Therefore, he must hate all white people. No. You can't find anything at all. You see what I'm saying? You can't find anything about that at all. Yeah, they find it to be incredulous that somebody such as myself could be incredibly accurate. Rather than that, they say I lack credibility. Not because I even look bad, look this, because I don't look the part for what you're thinking. But a lot of people can't even hear what's being said because in your mind, right? That's an average thing. I'm just trying to tell you what is. You can say, oh, no, that's not true. I'm telling you, when I go out there and I speak a little bit of French, I'm not even fluent. My wife is the one that's fluent. I speak a little bit of French to my son, and somebody who's from Morocco or somebody who's from Egypt or somebody who's from the Middle East or somebody who's, from France or somebody who's from Montreal or the different places like that. And all of a sudden, oh, wow, you speak French, blah, blah, whatever. Surprise. Why? Because of the appearance. And I get it. I'm not French. So why would I speak it as far as what they would think? But that's what I'm saying. The appearance of it is surprising. Then it becomes shocking when I even can tell them something about their culture. Because I don't just listen to my culture or only do things through my perceived prism as if that's the only thing that exists. There's many different other cultures and prisms that are going on simultaneously. I should probably lend my ear to those too, so that I don't just assume that somebody is doing whatever. So part of the issue that's going on is that, hey, he's using certain word usage. He can be articulate. He can be bright. He can speak on my level. He can speak above my level. He can speak under my level. He can be humble. He can be somebody who's nurturing. He can be a husband. He can be somebody who takes care of his family. He can be doing well. He can travel. He can do all these things that I would like to do, but he doesn't dress like me. He doesn't look like me. His hair doesn't look like mine, or at least something that I deem to be acceptable in my culture. Yeah, he's not smart. This is part of the Willie Lynch syndrome. And if you don't believe it, here we go. Willie Lynch syndrome. They said that if they did this and they started this correctly, they said to these people who would become the people who would have your presidents. Remember, we just said 4 out of 5 of your presidents, and really you could say 6 out of 6 if you include John Adams and John Quincy Adams, who both would have had slaves because they were in the White House. And on top of that, they both worked for Virginia slave masters to be able to come up to where they got to. But George Washington, Virginia slave master; Thomas Jefferson, Virginia slave master; Madison, Monroe, Virginia slave masters. Okay, so if you're talking about them being your founding fathers, even though they're not your first presidents, George Washington is the 9th president, not the first one, but since a lot of you want to start there, okay, if George Washington is your first president, he sets a precedent. When you spin them ones, you see his image, his reflection, his name, even his authority. This is a systemic thing, systematically put in place. So we have to operate and say, if George Washington is only honored for being president, and we only talk about he couldn't tell a lie because he chopped a cherry tree down, and we don't talk about, right, and we talk about him going across the New York River or whatever it was called at the time, but now all of a sudden, hey, we don't want to talk about the fact that he was offing the natives everywhere he was going, to the point where he almost lost the war because he was more infatuated with offing these branches of people, these countries, these nations, right, and killing off all these people, more so than he was about making sure that he won the war that he started in the first place, because he didn't want to pay taxes, and he got the poor people to be against, and it was 50-50. 50% wanted to stay part of England, but they were coming for George Washington and the founding fathers, who came against King George. And so that's when they said, well, we all got to become Americans. Look, they're trying to get us. They're trying to get us. They're trying to get you, George. That's how this country, so-called country, starts. And even this country is not even a country by definition or by law, because according to United States Code 28 USC 300215 subsection A says that this is a corporation, not even a country. Subsection B says this is a board. That's why you have a president, vice president, secretary. Y'all just like, oh no, George Washington just wanted to call himself Mr. President. No, he called himself president because he was over a corporation, and he had 100% vote. Do you not find that odd? That even though I know only 6% were supposed to be allowed to vote, 6% of what you call the American population was allowed to vote. That, right, women weren't allowed to vote. You had to be a white slave owner or white property owning, including slave owning male, to be able to vote. And even a lot of them couldn't vote. But do you not find it interesting that 100%, that nobody in a free vote, that nobody, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, possibly, whatever it was, that nobody thought that anybody could be president except George Washington? You never thought that that was weird, right? Like if you were to go, if I were to go to Jamaica, and all of a sudden there was supposed to be a war took place, a war that half the people didn't even agree upon, and we won, and we kicked everybody else out, and we put up borders and everything, and we said we are the United States of Jamaica, and we put on a vote, and I got 100% of the vote. Wouldn't that be a little odd? Just saying. It'd be a little much, right? Even if you a Trump guy, if Trump got 100% of the vote, wouldn't you be like, some people wouldn't, because you're brainwashed. Make it Biden, whoever. If Biden got 100% of the vote, if whatever Kennedy is running right now, got 100% of the vote, and there just been finished being a war, a battle, wouldn't you say something a little off? I'm sorry, I don't know, Sister Nadine, if you put a comment there, I might have missed it. I don't see anything right now. But I'm sorry, appearance can be deceiving. Look at their heart and their action. Is that the one? Okay, that one I see. Um, so you see what I'm saying? But there's Willie Lynch mode. And now here's the next part. On top of that, not only is it difficult to look at me because of what I look like. Hey, how you doing, Stone Bro? Not only because of that, but watch this. For some, not all. See, this is the thing. I talk about it and people go, "You talking about everybody?" No. I'm not Republican or Democrat. When you get to a place where you just see somebody for who they are, you don't have to be Republican or Democrat. Right? Even if I believe in the Bible, and I do, it doesn't mean that I can't meet a Muslim and we can't have a conversation. Even if I believe that there's certain things in my culture that a wife should and should not do, it doesn't mean that if a woman gets a word that starts with A that rhymes with extortion, even if she gets that, it doesn't mean that we can't ever have conversation. You see that? You see what I'm saying? There's this weird thing that we can't ever have any kind of different opinion or different conversation, a different thought process. Right? You know how many sisters I've sat down and done life coaching with, personal life coaching, who have had that done to their body or have given up children for adoption and feel terrible about it after the fact? And one of the first things I do is to try to make sure that they realize, man, you should forgive yourself, because if you're coming looking for me, even if you're looking at me as a pastor, whatever, looking at me for forgiveness, Yahweh can forgive whatever you ask him for. And he can fix it for you too, to where it becomes something that is glory involved and not just wickedness. You see what I'm saying? And thank you everybody on Facebook, Clapper, YouTube, TikTok. We're about to take our lead. I'm gonna just say this last thing, and then I'm gonna leave it here. We've already talked about Willie Lynch syndrome and letters, and we've had a series on YouTube and Facebook and all that before, so you guys can look at all that stuff for yourself at any other time. But just we'll end with this. Part of the Willie Lynch letter, part of the Willie Lynch speech, legit starts off, or not starts off. Excuse me. It goes into, what do you do to somebody who's considered to be the chieftain or the leader of the group, of the nation that's been captured? Because remember, we just think in ourselves, oh yeah, they enslaved property, they enslaved like animal, like they enslaved people with no kind of ritual, no kind of tradition, no kind of mindset, no kind of belief system. And that's far from the truth. How you doing, Aaron, if I didn't say so earlier? This is what happened. We went in and you stole nations. And then you took belief systems, and then you took cultures, and you took a lot of stuff, and you said that they had none or whatever. And then the parts that you like, you took it as your own. And yes, everybody was enslaved, even though that's not 100% accurate. But even if that's your thing, fine. Everybody who was enslaved, all of the slave masters were wrong. Every last one of them. And if there's anybody that my people have enslaved, look, I'm part Kemetic. So if I have people that we enslaved, including part of myself, that I'm wrong. That part of my family is wrong. And I'm here to be a curse breaker. Somebody says, well, I didn't do it. Yeah, but you might be carrying the curse. You might be carrying the mindset of it. Are you going to break the curse or not? If my father was abusive, right? He's a great man, but did he go too far sometimes in disciplining? Sure. If he did, then guess what? I can break the curse. I don't have to do to my child the same thing or worse that my father did. I can break the curse. My mother had some beliefs. As much as she taught me a lot of stuff about what I believe today, she has some beliefs that are off the chain. Well, guess what? I can keep those off the chain things and still be ineffective in making sure that certain things can be changed, or I can be the one that breaks that chain in my family and allow our humanity to be what's looked at rather than these negative things that we've done only. So I've made a decision to break curses. And why that's weird for people is beyond me. If you have a curse on your family, it means it's part of you, right? There's not even, as much as people say, this isn't even 100% accurate. People act like their diseases are genetic. diseases are hereditary. Technically not. If you talking about, oh, well, male pattern baldness or female pattern baldness, and it comes from the mother, it comes from the father, all these different, why nobody knows where it comes from? Because reality is, if you eat things that cause your hair to fall out, or if you live a life of stress and you're raised in that same environment, right? You raise your child in the same environment, your child will get the same thing that you got. If you live in an environment where you eat certain things or stress about certain things, and you come from an environment where your heart has issues your whole life, you'll probably grow up or you'll probably grow up with the same issues that you came out of, and you'll raise your child to have the same issues. It's not really that difficult. Somebody has to be the curse breaker to say, enough is enough, right? I don't want my son getting to a certain age and having pains in his body and stuff to where now, praise Yah, I've gotten myself better, but it might be too little too late for certain things, as far as not having to have certain pains and things like that I'm going to deal with. And I'm trying to live 150 years. That's what I be asking the Most High for all the time, right? Prayerfully, he hears my prayer. But for the rest of my life, however long that might be, there might be some things I had to deal with because I didn't do things properly when I was younger. But guess what? Let me teach my son not to do those things now, so that when he gets to be older, he won't fall into that same curse. He can break it, right? I'm going to break it with myself. And even if I'm still feeling the effects of it, right, because I might be a little rusted as a chain, my son who's coming up next, he doesn't have to be rusted at all. He can remain pure. But this is what they would do. Willie Lynch letter. He says specifically, when you get the nation who comes off the boat, and thank you for the love, appreciate you. The nation, when they come off the boat, whoever the chieftain is, you can tell the chieftain because the chieftain is the one that has to show himself as the proudest. He has to make sure that he doesn't bow down. He has to make sure that the people know that even though they've captured us, this and that, we still have some kind of pride, right? And so what do you do to the chieftain? What do you do to the prophet? What do you do to the leader? What do you do to the pastor? What do you do to the president of your country, to the prime minister, somebody standing something up for you? What do you do to the chieftain? Well, it says that you take the chieftain and you take him in front of everybody. It says that you strip him naked. What are you doing? You're showing the nation that he's not covered, and what he wears has no bearing on anything that's going to happen from this point on. Right? You strip him down. And then once you strip him down, it says, then you're going to make sure that you beat him. Right? Then you're going to beat him up. Then you're going to tar and feather him. Now it's funny, he's burning, and on top of that, you're going to even make sure that there's feathers, right? You're making him look chicken, so to speak, right? He's still not giving in, though, which means he's not chicken, but you're going to make sure that everything that he does looks like that. That's what they did. This is Willie Lynch letter. You can read this, written 1712, Christmas Day, December 25th, 1712. Same thing that the families who are going to come out of Virginia, who are going to be your presidents and all that stuff to set precedent for the country, so-called country you think you're in, even though it's not a country, it's a corporation. And you're not seeing how that could have affected things, even not just how you look at yourself, but how even the people who were affected by it, how they look at themselves and now look at you. So you're at war because of something that you didn't even cause. You should at least see what's going on, help break the curse. But that's not what people want to do, right? But anyways, so now you've tarred and feathered the person. On top of that, then it says that you're going to, well, actually, before I get there, you're going to, at this point, start to take the other males. You're breaking down a nation, and you're making the nation believe that they are nothing. It says at this point, you're going to take other males. This is Willie Lynch letter, 1712. You can look it up, PDF. Look up Willie Lynch letter, PDF. I think you want to look up the second one. If you're Googling it, you're going to want to look up the second one that pops up. There's one that's going to have a bunch of pictures. It's going to be hard to read. If you want to look at, just read it. Then you want to look at the second one, I believe. Willie Lynch letter, PDF, WILLIE, space LYNCH, space LETTER, space PDF. Okay. All right. But you look it up. Then it'll say on top of that, while that's going on, you're going to grab the other males. This was what they did every day, right? Or every time somebody was coming in, especially if people weren't listening, they didn't just automatically bow down. It says, then you take the other males and you're going to beat them, but not to the point where they lose their lives. You're going to beat them to the edge. Why? Because and he says, he uses these words. He says, because they represent good economics. And I quote, good economics. He says they represent good economics. They're going to work for you. They're not going to be allowed to marry, but, you're going to be able to breed them. And then you're going to be able to put them right back, like they do with chattel. You got the cows, and the cows are doing this, and they get milk and all this stuff. And the bulls, they go ahead, they do their everything, and they might help pull some things. But every once in a while, you reward the bulls. You let them go into the place and get as much stuff in with the cows as they can, and you'll go ahead and be able to have another litter. They literally would call you a litter of pups when you were born out of the breeding camps. So you have another litter, and then we'll take those men and they go right back to doing what they were doing. As a matter of fact, if they're really great, maybe they're really great at fighting. Maybe, even though we know there's actually a group of people called Mandingo, but maybe they're a great Mandingo fighter. So they go out there, they put it down. And so now you allow the Mandingo fighter to go in. That's why you have these movies and stuff in some of these books. And you think of Mandingo, some of you, as like a sexual thing, because they would take the Mandingo who would win these fights for the slave masters and stuff, these cockfights, if you will. And they would go ahead and say, okay, go ahead and make us some more babies because we need to breed some more Mandingo fighters. And then they pull them back in. And if he did well enough when he got older, hey, you know what? You can go ahead and kind of live better than everybody else. But usually they weren't going to make it that long. And when they got really, really beat bad, really, really bad, and they couldn't make it that long in these little mini gladiatorial games, guess what? You put them out of their misery. Like you would a horse. They broke their leg, got a bone sticking out, broken neck. You can't live the rest of your life like that. And hey, we waste some money now. I'm supposed to take care of you for the rest of your life. Right? So they would take all the men and beat them to the point of death, not to death, but to the point of it, because they represent, and I quote, good economics. And then after that, you take them, right? After that, you take them, and then you'll let them heal and recover. But while that's happening and you're beating to the point of death, the chieftain who's above everybody, who you've now gotten to the place of tar and feather, and you're not finished with him yet. You're going to put him in front of everybody, and you're going to take his legs. You've already made him naked, right? Now you're going to spread his legs. You're spreading his seed. You're basically castrating him. Forgive my language, but that's what you're doing in front of everybody. Then, right, but you're showing his stuff. That's something in our culture you don't do. You don't just show your testicles to anybody, especially your sons, right? But you're going to open them up to everybody. Then, while you're doing that, while that's happening, once you got them strapped, you're strapping them to two horses. Basically put them almost a split, if not a split, right? So now you got them strapped to two horses. Then you're going to set him on fire in front of everybody. Remember, the males are being beat to the point of death while this is happening, right? Then while you do that, on top of that, then it says you're supposed to, and people think this is crazy. It's still not finished yet because the horses might not be afraid of the fire enough yet to run. So in case they're not, then you slap the horse on his behind, and they obviously will split the man in half in front of everybody. This is the chieftain. This is the one who's in charge. This is the one that everybody's supposed to think is the protection. Now, on top of that, thank you, just for educational purposes only. And then on top of that, then what do? Then while that's happening, the men are being beat. Then on top of that, what do? Oh, you must have forgot. There's other people part of this nation, other people part of this family that's being brought in. The women and the children are supposed to watch this. The women and the children are supposed to watch this now. And what is the woman? This is what Willie Lynch declares. He says that when the woman watches this, she realizes and now recognizes that she has no protection. He said that we have now, he says in the letter, we have now reversed their order. He says not only that, he says we have reversed the order of nature. I know it's tough. I'm not going to bring it up I'm not going to bring it up no more. It's a short version of it. Y'all saw half of this today. We were dealing with the questions. Actually, more than half of this. Praise y'all. Right? I'm not gonna bring it up no more. But I'm just trying to show you. But it says you bring them out and you split. You do all this stuff, and then you have to have the women and children watching. And now you have reversed their nature. You have reversed the natural order. She used to be somebody in her natural. They call it in her natural N-word state or her natural African N-word state. They say she would have believed that her husband was supposed to be her protector, and therefore she would have respected him and would have taught her children to respect him. But what's happened is that she has now seen that in this culture that they're in, that everything she came from doesn't matter because he ultimately can't protect her. And so she will now raise, this is what it says, she will raise her children in reverse roles, and that she will teach her daughter to be strong and independent. You thought that was a whole new thing. You thought that was I'm every woman, it's all in me. You thought that was a new thing. Nope. You thought strong, independent. You thought, right, Miss Independent was the thing. You thought Neo just came up with that. No, he said we will raise them up to raise their own children up. In one instance, we've taught her that she has to teach them in reverse roles. She will become the matriarch. She will raise her daughter to be strong and independent. She will raise her son to be one who is supposed to be behind and protected. So the protector has become the protected, the one that should be looked at and protected. She has become the person who is the protector. And it says that she will be like the mare. They said that we break them down the same way we break down horses. The same way we break down the stallion is the same way we'll break them down. So she is not, so now she doesn't look to her male horse as the stallion. She looks at the owner as the stallion. It says that now the mare, who would have only been protected by her stallion, the female horse, that's how they're referring to y'all. The animal that would have only been taken care of by their male counterpart, now that animal is only looking for protection through the slave master. So it says the same way the mare will now come and eat out of your hand, and she will teach her offspring to eat out of your hand as well. It says that that's what this N-word woman will now do. This African woman will now do. This Native American woman will now do. She'll raise everything in reverse. You see? So this is why we have to go back to a culture where we're separate from that, because in this culture, the only way you're supposed to be looked at as strong is if you act like your oppressor. If you look like your oppressor, maybe it looks okay to eat out of your hand. Right? And I don't want my wife to think she's supposed to eat out of my hand. I want my wife to eat with me. Even if you're looking at it as the horse thing, which is what they're comparing you to, the male horse doesn't have the female horse have to eat out of his mouth or out of his hoof or out of his hand or off his back. The male horse makes sure he protects the family, and also he eats with the family. So you see what I'm saying? They raised you on this stuff. So we got to put that away. So we got to be real quick. We're already late. We got to be real quick. I'm not even going to go deep into stuff. We're going to do our shout out. If you want to come over to TikTok, join us for the shout out, feel free to do so. Clapper will probably start doing a shout out on here eventually. I got to figure out how to do it with you guys. But a shout out basically where we let you guys put your information up on the screen and stuff. But we'll try to figure out how to make that work in a little bit for you guys, and eventually start doing one with you guys as well. So we'll eventually start having the shout out on both TikTok and Clapper, just in case at some point we got to ease off TikTok. Supposedly we probably have to, who knows. But today is day number 3 of removing the leaven. Right, today we talked about Willie Lynch syndrome. We did some Q&A as well. All right. What's today? Today is 3-15, right? Today is the 15th, I believe. 3-15, 2024. And this is SOCs. All right. Quick bullet points as far as removing the leaven from our home. And some stuff that we learned that we want to remove and we want to put in our leaven box during this 40-day period. Some ideas and ideology we need to release and let go of. Anybody have anything that they learned today? So you can see we got our card and all that stuff today. Anybody have anything that they learned today? If we get ready to put it in our leaven box and then we can take our leave. I know it's a lot. Sometimes it's a lot. It is what it is. Right? Pray about this, by the way. I know I said a lot of stuff. Pray, calm yourself down, try to get a place where you can process, you can think clearly and stuff like that. Anybody have anything they learned from today that they want to put on here? We're going to put this in the box. Certain things that we learned, we want to put in this together and make sure that we don't bring this up and don't live this as a society and don't even blame others for this at this point. Now we know better. You got an opportunity to make sure that you're not acting the same way you've been. All right, we got one, be the standard. Thank you, sir. Come on, we got to do this somewhat quick. I apologize for rushing us. I know I just threw a lot at the end out there, right? But I can't stay on too much longer. We already kind of have gone over time a lot. And it's the second day. I don't want to hit noon again. I think we went like 12:30ish yesterday. Well, I'm going to put some on there. Be the standard. Honor fathers. Honor mothers. I'm a curse breaker. Be curse breakers. That's a great one. No days off from humanity. That's my, oh, well, thank you. Okay. I will leave it there for now. I don't want to take too much time, but we leave it there for now. I don't see anything else popping on the screen. So thank you guys. Appreciate you. So we're going to put this in our box. So you see, we got this day 3. We got Willie Lynch syndrome and everything on the top. We got the date on it. We got our bullet points. All right, we'll pick back up with that. We're putting it in our Leaven box, and we're not gonna look back, right? We'll look to see when we go over these again. We'll look to see where we are on these things. You have something to share? Okay, I'm sorry. What was it that you? I'm sorry. Were you?
Show and tell.
Are you coming in front of the screen? Or you still
okay, I look like I'm,
well,
at home.
Well, I was just asking because I get out your way.
This I got from Dollar Tree. It's just a makeup organizer, but it's great for propagating or starting new herbs. So I took a cutting off one of our basil plants because right now we only have one that's alive, and this is like about a week's worth of root growth just by putting it in water in the window. So yeah, just show and tell. Bye, guys.
All right, amen. Okay.
I'm excited about it.
Are you handing it to? Okay.
I need to go plant them.
Okay. All right. So praise y'all. So there you go. So something you can do and something we're looking at, little ideas and stuff like that we can have to ensure that everybody's on the same page with different things. So there you go. But thank you guys. Appreciate you. And we're thankful again. We're appreciative again for you guys being on. And thank you for spending some time with us. And hopefully, once again, this was something that helped you out in your journey. So we're going to get ready to take our leave. If you're on TikTok, we're going to get ready to do our shout out. So hopefully you can stick around for our shout out for just a little bit. If you've never done a shout out with us before, pretty simple. If you're on another platform and you want to come over for the shout out, just go ahead and come on by just look for us at hashtag Find Kofi. If you're going on TikTok, we should pop up. And what's going on, you should be able to find us pretty easily. But we thank you guys again. I'm sorry for Facebook. Facebook apparently has been is still giving us issues. They've been trying to kick us off. They kicked us off yesterday, and I didn't even know. So I guess I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on device wise, or just maybe what's going on Facebook wise, etc. But we thank you guys. We appreciate you. And we'll get ready to do our shout out. I don't have time today to necessarily explain how the shout out works. So if you come over to TikTok and you just kind of follow what others are doing, and you'll be able to kind of get the gist of it. You'll see some announcements and stuff in the background while we're going through all that. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate you again. Take care. We give our honor and praise once again to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life is able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. We thank you guys so much again for being on. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, pastor, servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Take care. Remember your affirmations, and we appreciate you all. You guys have a great day. Continue to do great things, and prayerfully, we'll talk to you guys later tonight and tomorrow. Peace, and take care.